All
Hi.
right.
Hello,
Hello,
hello.
hello, hello.
We're back.
Welcome back, where we're going to have to figure out what we're going to talk about again, because we never know, and we end up talking about the whole universe from its point of beginning to the point of potential end and all the possibilities in between.
That's the magic of talking crap.
Yeah, so many things to talk about. There's an endless things to talk about. Sometimes I feel like this whole universe was created just so we can talk about all these things.
The universe, just listen to us right now.
Yeah, it just wanted somebody to talk all kinds of smack about it.
It's
But
consciousness realizing that it's conscious talking to itself.
yeah, and it's doing it just through that, through this podcast. This is how it decided to do it. Why
Yeah.
not? Because like I like this question why a bit too much, and sometimes you would even ask like why God, why did you make it this way, or even how did you make it this way? But how would God like explain it to you, to your little human small mind, if it's literally some kind of miraculous, incomprehensible way where the only way you can know about it is by just seeing and experiencing it. But otherwise, there's no how or why, because it just, you won't understand essentially the answer by just hearing the words. That's why, like, there's a limit to language. We can talk about all kinds of stuff, but it's just talking. It's just little words and concepts, and us trying to drill into them and see if we can extract anything else. I remember what I wanted to talk about, but I don't know. It might be too heavy to start with,
Come on.
but
Bring it on. Bring it on.
it's
Come
it's
on.
just so fundamental. Like last time we discussed a bit of information, and I was rewatching that part, and dude, for the first few minutes, we didn't make any sense. There was just no sense whatsoever. You started talking about quarks. It was just did
I mean,
not,
it's,
because it's such a fundamental thing. But what's more fundamental than information essentially is meaning. What's the meaning of meaning, or what is meaning?
and also, well, the question will be, so when you define something such as the word meaning, who is or what criteria does that kind of categorize it as meaning? If you catch my drift, like who decided that this is meaningful or why it has meanings,
Yes, that
right?
was the kind of the next part leading to me, because the reason I had that question recently pop up, I was experimenting with ChatGPT, just with the way it works with text, because it can do some funky things. But I was experimenting with it making poems for me and with me, just kind of seeing what it can do.
Okay.
And even though it's like obviously a very powerful language model, and language, it's its whole universe, the output that it provides, which can be perfect structure, perfect rhythm, perfect rhyme for a poem, when I read it, I realize that it's not as meaningful to me. Even though it uses all the cool words, all the right structure,
Right.
it's trying to be poetic and poignant, it's doing all the right things, but something like some kind of spark is noticeably missing. And I compared it to the poems I just made by myself, and I literally have like a relationship with those poems where like I can read them and I can get like emotional because there's meaning in them. They're just so meaningful to me. But I was trying to analyze, well, what is that meaningfulness? What determines it and how it is established? And I literally felt that we essentially imbue things with meaning. It's a very personal thing. You can only think about meaning as your meaning. There's no other meaning really kind of exists. Like, first of all, you need to understand what's the meaning for you. And this is where it's trippy with the words. This is why I like drilling into the words so much, because I'm just more and more conscious of the fact that everybody has their own meaning, and it's the words are they're not mean exactly the same thing to different people.
Yeah.
Right? So especially when we are talking about these abstract or fundamental concepts, things like love or this meaning, they're more like feelings. They're more like a feeling or understanding or sensation that is somewhere deep inside of you, but you can't really convey them. So some of these words, they're just standing pointers to the moon, right? But they're not the moon itself. How would you describe meaning or what's meaningful to you?
Well, you see, the one of the thing, or at least the magic of writing, for example, is that you create it with the reader. What you write, whether that's a book or an article or something, you are trying to share your thoughts and how you derive meaning out of whatever subject matter you're trying to write. But the work is completed in the mind of the reader. So you are co-creating with your reader because what you created, that's your version, right? But when another person read it, they create their version in their own head. So their interpretation might be very different. This is why some work of writing can be almost controversial in the way that people did misunderstand, right? People misunderstand what you're trying to say. Or, if you write a story, you meant for this story to be read, at least the theme that you try to say it this way, but other people might read it differently. I remember, well, the example I can just recall recently was Dune. How Frank Herbert, when he originally wrote the book, he wrote Paul, the protagonist, as the antagonist. See, he's trying to make him as
Mm.
not just a typical hero. So it's trying to convey the message that, you know, like a messianic figure can be a bad thing, right? They can turn into basically a villain, right? That might not be the kind of prophet that you're hoping for. So that entire character arc is supposed to be, it's pretty much a take the rug from under you and make you think about these kind of ideas about what is the meaning of a hero and what's the meaning of what is leadership and how that can lead, how humanity should be led, and things, concepts like that. But lots of people misread it. They still interpret Paul as the protagonist, as the hero. This is the reason why on the second and third book later on, he basically drilled down and reinforced the idea that of the idea from the first book that he
Mm.
became the villain, or at least he became, basically mass murderer just for the sake of maintaining the empire that he created, right? And throughout the story is just a lot different than what people initially thought. And so he was frustrated. He expressed this through interviews, like he's frustrated. People misinterpret his whole story. They still think that he's a badass. He's the badass who call forth the jihad, and that's a good thing. And like that's just like it's like when you watch that movie, right? How the way they created the scenes, especially in the second movie, you kind of rooting for the guy, right? You were taken aback at like how powerful he became, and he's able to galvanize such force from the Fremen, and it's just you feel compelled, right? You want to yell out, the word as well because you feel the emotion being drummed up. But if you think about it, this is a bad thing, right? Billions of people die because of this, right? So that's the idea. But
Yeah, well,
other people
that becomes kind
misinterpret
of a
that's
matter of
the story.
perspective. And like what you were talking about reminds me a bit more about the fact that the writer had a specific intent and readers didn't detect it or read into it. That's kind of an example of misinterpretation of meaning, I guess. So it's like everybody extracted their own meaning for it, right? Readers received the meaning differently. But that's more of a comment on maybe the writer's ability to deliver his intent. It just means that he was not a good enough writer to convey what he wanted to depict.
Well, not necessarily because see, this is the thing, is different people's level of knowledge and wisdoms are very different. In this case, I think Frank Herbert is definitely a very well-read guy, and he's a great writer, right? He understood a lot of things that people don't understand. So you can kind of think about this with pop culture. What a lot of people really like in some ways are just too rudimentary. Like they don't have the, like, I don't know, if you think about all the pop cultures, right? Stuff like Star Wars. I mean, it's just kind of like that typical fantasy
The
story, a
stories are
space
pretty
opera.
simple.
It's simple, right? People can, like,
Yeah.
basically people really like that, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. But the issue is that a lot of times people either they couldn't comprehend some. This is why literary work sometimes it's very hard for the general public to kind of enjoy because is trying to delve very deep in some deep ideas that they couldn't comprehend, at least on us on the surface. So they will need to really study up, and people don't have the time, or they don't have they want to put in the effort. So that's why the general pop culture are just kind of enjoyable things, right? Fun things, and that's about it. So you have this different level of intellectual stimulation or kind of entertainment or whatever. You have on the base level is just have a good time. But then you can also have, if you read a really great book, it make you think, and that's another form of entertainment and kind of enlightenment that kind of combine together with
Yeah.
deeper meaning. So you have all these different levels of it, right? So how I'm thinking about this question is that, well, that's kind of the magic of it too. Depending on people's own kind of personal experience, they can read a book very differently because, and that's the magic, right? And that's you create something so unique that is unique for everybody. So a book can be, you can, as a writer, you can write one book. This is your version of the story of whatever it is. But then you can have multiple versions by any the reader who reads it. It's a different one. So two-person can read the same book and they have a maybe not vastly different, but they have a different interpretation of it. Just like how you know how right now in the world of politics, it's so all over the place because people can say, I'm for this, I'm against that, and you're the villain for supporting blah blah. Like they all have a narrative in their own head. They think they're right, you know?
It's a
So
narrative and it's a point of perspective. And this is kind of to tie it on what you were talking about. I don't know what to call it, like the general level of intelligence or the general level of development, where you maybe have been exposed to learn about some of these more expansive ideas, which allow you to kind of see better what's going on a higher level. I think like the movie Dune is a really good example to take and talk about it that way because there's so many layers to it, right? And you find that movie meaningful for yourself, right? What do you find meaningful about it? Like why? What are the ideas there that are kind of make it stand out instead of?
because the overarching theme of it to me is basically this question, okay, what's the best way for humanity to go forward? Because in that world, at least it's reflecting on the real world, we have all these systems and of power or of just how generally things work in our world on Earth. I mean, we have all these countries with their own self-interest, their own industry, their own capabilities, their own kind of resources and stuff. And these people are trying to figure out, okay, well, how to best to move forward for our people. And then you have other group of people who are antagonistic to you because if you do better, they might not be able to do as well because resources are limited, or at least this is how humanity think for itself. It's like we have a scarcity mentality, right? I mean, the world could be better if we just share what we have on Earth and kind of make sure we can have a more kind of a symbiotic relationship. But no, but in our world, in the human mind, it's so much easier to just see things as black and white, you know? Is us versus them, right? And that creates this kind of competition in all these systems. And I think in the story of Doom, at least in that universe, what the author created was just trying to figure out, okay, let's just say if this is how things are, how will these kind of positions of power negotiate for the result that kind of what's the best for humanity, right? I mean, if you think about Earth, we have all these people, all of us living here. What's the best way to go forward? I mean, we've been making technologies, we've been developing, we've been doing all this supposedly progress towards what? Isn't there a goal that we're aiming towards? Despite the fact that we always have these quarrels among us, but we are still trying to develop technology and try to go forward and go higher and higher. What does that mean? So in that Doom universe, I mean, their world is being set to this kind of fundamental feudalistic society because to them, to that future, this is how the most stable structure. Like we talked before, the hierarchy of there's always a social hierarchy, and for them,
So yeah,
it's the most
from that
stable.
standpoint, that's just you're talking about kind of the relevance to our world and the fact that that's the meaningful link, that it's kind of an exploration of how potentially in a future society the same age-old problems could be resolved. Like that's a pretty direct parallel with what we've had on Earth with the history, but that's not the interesting part because there they have a unique kind of spiritual phenomenon that they bring to the forefront. The fact that there is a possibility of this new type of mind that is more powerful than human. To me, like that kind of dives into my one of my favorite topics to think about is evolution of consciousness. Because in there, Paul is just, he is kind of a new type of consciousness that is able to, do more stuff and navigate the timeline, etc.
But the thing, see, how I read it is, but because he is able to exist as such, as this powerful new sort of mind, that creates the power struggle. Because when that thing is created, it's so powerful. Imagine how when we had nukes, that changed the entire game, right?
Yeah, it's a
So
paradigm shifting kind of event. Now,
in the same, sorry,
not,
go ahead.
yeah, I was just wanted to kind of think about what was happening from the standpoint of that mind, because essentially, imagine being Paul, right? You're just a dude. Well, and still in future with all this extra special training, but eventually you're human who gradually realizes that he's becoming something more than a human, and then whoa, you are actually it. And you are realizing it. And with that realization comes the power. Like you literally somehow, you've been promoted, in other words. You've been majorly promoted. You're now the general of the whole cosmos, because as far as you are, or whole humanity is concerned, nothing like that has ever happened. You are the new type of guy. You're like a vampire, among humans. You're just so much more powerful that not only you don't have competition, but with this power comes responsibility of what to do with it. Because anytime anybody has any power, they exercise it. It's what's that saying with the? It's like in the novels of Chekhov. If there's a gun hanging on the wall,
It
it's gonna
must be
shoot.
fired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same thing. If you gain superpowers all of a sudden, what's you gonna do? You're gonna use them, of course, just out of the curiosity, first of all, and then when you realize I can like steer whole minds, I can pretty much command millions of people and guide them towards using my will. It's a whole other reality changes for you. You're no longer living in a world where you are just one of many walking around and have to
Yeah.
contend with everybody. You're now fearless. You like a demigod at that point.
In the story, he basically became God, essentially. Not just for the Fremen, but also because he can topple the entire power structure because he can read the future. I mean, a version of the future, meaning that he has more ability than any average human. Because even if you can read potential futures, you have a massive advantage over the everyday person. Because see, the problem that we have current as humans is that we can't predict the future. Things are so chaotic, right? Like everything happening, like we can't even compute all the information
Yeah,
there is,
it's the number of variables and moving parts. It kind of reminds me of I'm gradually trying to level up my chess game currently, and I'm just playing with just
right?
apps, right? Simple apps, so it's simple computer. But I already know that essentially there's the AI that currently exists. It's unbeatable in terms of chess masters can't beat AI anymore. We passed that threshold. At some point, computers such as that didn't exist, and then they leveled up to a degree where now it's game over, because it can see into the future essentially of possibilities of the situation on the board so well that it can optimize for them and make the best moves way in advance of you. And I'm literally like, as I'm playing these low level games with a computer with AI, I notice that because I see, well, how did you get the situation on board? But then I'm seeing, yeah, he put pieces in advance in the
Yeah,
positions where they would be useful to execute a certain scheme. I'm like, I can't do that. How do you do that? Like, I
because
can't
they can
think of that many things at once.
exactly because the way they can compute is just so much vastly superior than the human mind. That's in that sense because it can just run all the scenario. You can just learn all the moves, right? and then kind of pre-set up the conditions. When they interpret you're making a move, they
Yeah.
can all the variations. The computer already has that, so it can compute all these different scenarios, and it came to it will come up with an most optimal way to go forward. So that capability, the human mind does not have. I mean, you can train your whole life as a chess master, try to play, and maybe you can get close to it in terms of speed and processing power, but you can't beat a computer. I mean, it just doesn't. It's not to the same. It doesn't mean that. It just means that it's very different how the human mind processes things and how computers are being laid out and designed in such a way to interpret things. So that's like what you were saying about poems, right? Because to me, that just sound like what the computer is doing is trying to interpret data, but it cannot interpret meaning in such a way that, because it's basically reading a collection of poems and gather all the clues about what a poem is, and then it composes. It's basically like a kid cobbled together a thing that it's like if you show a kid how to build a Lego, right? You show them how to do it, and they just kind of attempt at building something without understanding what they're building, right? So that's to me is what it sounds like. The AI is trying to make a poem, but they do not understand
Yeah.
what the meaning.
Essentially, it's just an algorithm. So it's an algorithm that works according to certain rules, and we have been able to set it up in a way where the algorithms are pretty good in terms of their outputs. They're providing more and more outputs that seem like they're legit and they make sense. But yeah, there's no meaning processing. Although I'm pretty sure that whatever kind of anatomy of AI and these algorithms are, I think that's pretty much what we're trying to do. We're trying to make an engine for meaning, for both writing and reading it, because this is like why I want to bring it back to the topic of meaning and what it is, because we still haven't defined what it is.
We can't. It's basically
Surely there's a definition for it. So if you
what
say
there
what
is.
meaning is,
There is a
try to say what it
definition,
is.
but humans don't understand nothing at all. Okay, like no matter how much knowledge you
That's not we
have,
we ending the stream and the podcast then. That it doesn't
that's
work.
it. It ends. It's
It's
the
done.
end. Okay, that's it. We don't understand
Understands
nothing, and
anything.
that's it. That's it. But that's the truth of it, though, because we're still confused as ever, right? With all the knowledge that we have, we still can't really like you think that we know a lot of stuff. I mean, and we do, but it all depends on the context, right? And if you think about how again talking about predictions and things, like there's so many things that happens in history that we human mind interpret one way, and what end up happening in the real world, it happened in another way. And one example is this: me being Chinese and having read all of Chinese history. And the most recent is the Cultural Revolution in the 60s. And one of the thing that happened was um, the party in power decided that they want to revolutionize everything, right? Rewrite all the Chinese culture. They want to rewrite it. They want a complete new culture, start from anew. So they were even contemplating of getting rid of Chinese characters. Basically, no more Chinese writings. You want to use. They're trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. They want to redo all of that. Now, luckily, I guess that didn't happen. They didn't replace Chinese characters. They simplified it, right? And so now people from mainland China, we write basically a simplified version of Chinese, right? But they were contemplating literally using alphabets, even just like how in Vietnam they used the Latin alphabet to kind of spell out their words. So they were even contemplating that, but that didn't happen. But one of the things that happened as well is that they were trying to basically outcompete the West. So they tried to raise up their industrial capacity and what have you. But the thing is, all they have was, at least at the time, Mao, what he did was he galvanized the entire population for the purpose. And one of the things they did was, okay, we're going to produce steel. So we're going to melt all the pots and all the whatever farming equipments and just to make steel, thinking that we have so many people, we can do this, we have enough resources to do it. Not only do they not have the know-how, is that kind of entire steel making industry, it takes years to build such industries. and to have the know-how, the systems in place. And they were just trying to melt everyday metal. They're not good enough. You can't
So
make steel out of
where's
normal.
this going? Because we're talking about meaning. I don't want to stray
Okay,
off
okay,
too far from that.
I'm coming down to that. Okay, so they did all this as if they knew the exact meaning of what they're trying to do. Like, oh, we understand what we're doing. They were basically saying, oh, we know what we're doing, but it ended up causing the biggest famine during that period because there's no more farming equipment anymore because everything's being melted. Just because people were I suppose they were brainwashed by the idea that, oh yeah, we can do anything. We can try to outcompete the West with our own sort of will of power, a power of will, right? Not understanding the scientific methods, not understanding how these things come about. So what kind of meaning did they derive from it? They think that, oh, we can be Supermans. We can do whatever we
So
like.
yeah, it literally meant something else to them than what it was in reality. So there was some kind of misunderstanding and misapplication of, as I guess.
And this is the thing. This is why I guess the education is very important because the thing is another thing that happened was in the same period what they were trying to do was also because obviously China back then was an agricultural state. So basically, agriculture is one of the biggest thing that's the strength of that country. So what they're trying to do, oh, obviously we want to make more crops. We want to create more food. Okay, let's do that. By but one of the problem is the pests, right? Such as rats. They even define sparrows as that, locusts, and all this stuff. So like we're gonna eliminate them. So obviously, in the human mind, they will think, well, if we eliminate all pests, that means no more pests eating the cropland. Therefore, we can have better yields. Okay, so they immobilize the entire country, start killing not just rats and these kind of general pests, but they also start killing sparrows, the little birds, sparrows. Once they kill that, the locusts came back because you see in the natural system, the sparrows are the ones that eating all these smaller pests. But when they define them as pests, they eliminate that entire part of the ecosystem. And what happens is, well, obviously nature comes back, right? Because when predators are gone, some of these pests come back. So you have literally all these locusts and they basically came back and eat all the crops because you can't kill them all. These birds are killing
But
the
yeah,
pests
but
for
I'm
it.
still not understanding like what does this have to do with meaning? Like you have to can you make it more
Because
succinct without retelling the whole history of China?
not trying,
What does it have to do with meaning?
you see how you, okay, this is why you got to contextualize everything. At least from how I see, this is the, again, we have this misunderstanding here, right? See, we're trying to derive something, but in my mind, I have to build up the backstory to explain why I'm deriving at this question, why I'm arriving at the answer to the question. But you interpretation is different than mine. You think, oh, what are you talking about all this? This has nothing to do
No,
with the meaning
I'm
itself.
not
But
seeing where it's going. So these
but
things
that's the
happen in
interesting part,
China.
right?
Yeah. What's the next part?
All these things happen because the people in power or in that state did not understand the significance of certain knowledge that in the modern world that you need to have as a base to build the society, to have a better understanding of the world, to build the culture, the meaning, the everything, right? Because like how do you define, like if you have a culture has what? A culture has all the kind of past teachings that happens to your certain to your people, and these things are being passed down. This is what culture is. These things are knowledge from the past that we understand. Okay, this is how the world works. This is how the systems are, how the natural world is, and we need to respect it, right? These traditions came down for a reason. And when you try to destroy all of that, thinking I am more powerful than my predecessors, I can define my own meanings. I can basically rewrite meanings for myself.
Just like that.
Just like that. I have the willpower to do so, and that was it. But the thing is, you can never beat. Nature is more powerful than you. You are. This is why religion always teaches people to be humble. You need to fear God. You need to, you know, you are nothing. There are power beyond you. And the moment you have hubris in your heart, thinking you are better than everybody else, you as a people is better than all the other people, well, that's when, things fall apart. This is why in the Bible, when the humans had the hubris of to build the Tower of Babel, thinking they can reach the heavens that they can outcompete God, and then God just struck them down and then basically had them speak different languages so they can't even understand each other anymore because you're trying to reach out like and supersede God. That is, you know, at least in the religious context, like that's not only a no-no, it's just you will not be able to do. God is always more powerful than you. So this is what I'm trying to get arrive at. And I'm telling all that backstory is because this happened to
Yeah, it
really
happened, but so how does it help us understand what meaning is? I'm still trying to get you to define what meaning is.
well, first of all, let me just the disclaimer. There's nobody on this earth can define what meaning is, okay? What we're trying to get at is what meanings we can
No, 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 no,
define what
no,
it
no,
isn't
no excuses.
because you
You're
can't
not gonna
because
weasel
you
out
can't
of the
okay
questions, bro. The hard quitting
because
questions.
okay
Show.
let's just say if I
Don't tell me the
define it
history of China.
okay let's just say if I defined it right let's just say
I'm just asking
I
you a
no
question.
I'm trying to answer it okay
You
so
can't.
well exactly I can't so
Is this
imagine
your way
okay
of
if I do
demonstrating
give you a
that you
statement
can't? Just what do you think it is? That's a word that means something, right?
but when you ask question like that it's like okay what's the context meaning of
The
what
context
meaning
is
of
word.
right so what I'm arriving at is that first of all you can't define it because not only is it personal on the individual level on a society level there's different level to it right you can have an individual interpretation of meaning you can have a societal general interpretation of meaning and like so each individual's interpretations are different just as what just happened right we had a misunderstanding of how okay one question and then your idea of how to answer that is very different than mine and how I'm
Yeah.
trying to perceive at it and try to answer it is very different. That's how misunderstanding happens because we interpret it very differently. But to your question, first of all, even the idea of defining what meaning is almost impossible because my interpretation is mine. It's not yours. You can understand how I arrive at it, but even to myself, to ask myself, okay, what is the word meaning? What is meaning? What's the context? Meaning of what? You have to have a thing or a phenomenon or something in which I'm trying to define it
No, the
to
word
interpret it.
meaning. What does it mean? The word meaning. The words have definitions. If you go to dictionary right now, it will have a definition, right?
Yes, they do.
If you're saying you can't define it or you don't know it, then you literally don't understand the meaning of meaning. So you don't know what it means when you're saying it. So all the stories that you just said, you don't know how they relate to the word. So you're just saying nonsense.
Okay. Let's turn this back around. You define it. So the question, right? The question you asked me, how would you what is meaning?
It's synonymous with significance. It's importance that we assign to, I would say, maybe like some kind of symbolic representation
But
of
why symbolic?
experiences and phenomena in the world.
But why symbolic? Is it because we can't
Because
interpret the information we try to
I think it's essentially not verbal. It's non-verbal. The meaning. It's something visceral that we feel. For example, imagine you are a child and you haven't learned the language yet. You grow up in a forest, being raised by animals. You know the meaning of danger, of cold, of heat, of thirst, of hunger. You don't know language. So, but it is symbolic. And language is simply communication of these important feelings and sensations and understandings of environment. But the more language kind of developed, the more abstract it became and the more fluid and flexible the meaning is, and the more complex meaning we're able to inject into the words. But at the core and basis of it, I think that's what it means, because there can be such a thing as a meaningful glance, you know, where you derive meaning from the way somebody looks at you. They winked, they had a smirk, they didn't say nothing, but they conveyed meaning to you. And yes, indeed, depending on the situation and context, you can derive more meaning. Like if you are at a some kind of formal gathering where it's just overly formal, you don't know anybody, they're strangers, and somebody winks and smirks at you and you don't know them, that's like all kinds of meaning over there, right? And that you can extract.
Interpretations, right? But
Yeah,
it's
it's some kind of interpretation and significance. And yeah, I'm also struggling to kind of nail it down exactly, because without looking up the actual definitions, these are kind of like intuitions about the term and about what it could mean.
yeah, I mean, to me, is I always come back to this if I'm trying to interpret this question, it's always like the first thing came to my head is like it's always like, okay, what's the context? Because obviously you try to interpret
That
a
that
specific.
can be the question, Ben. That's you just completely going away from something. What do you mean? What's the context?
But what do you mean the meaning as in, okay, are you trying to define all meanings? Or is it like is it the
No, I'm talking about the word itself. See, you're getting tripped up on the fact that
well,
it's
yeah.
just the word. It has a definition. It means something. But the fact that we're trying to define meaning, we're trying to find the meaning of meaning. Essentially, we're trying to point out to that to which the word points to. What does that word stand for?
So that's the description of the phenomenon of deriving meaning. This process of interpreting things.
No, it's just asking what it is. That's why it's so trippy. I mean, this is the reason I'm asking this question, because the meaning of meaning,
I am getting tripped up because I think
it's
it's a
essentially
set
it's a cone.
it's right because
Yeah, it's essentially it's a cone. It's
but semantic sometimes are not. I mean,
essentially it's asking, in what cases do you find something significant? So this is the best way I found kind of to try to define these abstract words, is just to give them a synonym, or try to find a kind of a metaphor, an analogy or something. But a synonym, I think, works here very well. It's when you find something important, right? So this works. I find this meaningful, I find this important. It's synonymous terms, right? Statements. So if I find this poem meaningful, I find it important or relevant. Relevant would be another term, right? It's some kind of mix of importance plus relevance equals meaning.
but I always keep coming back to the idea that well,
Okay, if you were to give it, like, do it on your own terms and give it any context you want. I'm just trying to get any definition of meaning that you would be able to name. Just yourself. Like, what contexts are there to meaning? Are there different types of meaning? I'm not
different
familiar with that.
levels of
So what is an example of that? What does that mean to have different levels of meaning? What has different levels of meaning? Is there an example?
because obviously not all meaning are created equal, right?
What does that mean? Which meanings are not created equal? Give me an example. Like, what do you mean by different levels of meaning with different levels of meaningfulness?
Okay, let's just if okay, so when we derive meaning, we're interpreting signs of what we can perceive and read, right? Like you were saying about meaningful glances, okay, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
interpreting that signal. Well, there are levels to that then. A meaningful glance is one thing, and obviously a clear sign of somebody glaring at you, that's another sign. It's a different level of intensity and how you interpret. Okay, if somebody glare at you, okay, why is that guy glaring at me? What did I do? I don't know that guy. You
Okay.
start interpreting, okay, so did I do something wrong, or was that guy crazy, or what's going on? Then
So
if
you're
somebody give you
saying that
an ugly,
meaning is inherently connected with context, right?
that's my
That's what you,
interpretation.
okay, okay.
Meaning that you can't have an overarching thing that define meaning and basically define all meanings. Like what?
No, obviously, that's, of course, because no, like, so everything has meaning, right? It's kind of like everything is information and everything has meaning. So, yeah, this
So
is really
that's just,
difficult to
so
talk
that's
about.
why. So this is the how I'm interpreting. It's like well, there got to be a levels to how
Meaning
you.
is connected with context. It is personal, so it is subjective. So the meaning that you derive from a situation where what we're just describing as a meaningful glance or look, it's absolutely, it will be subjective to you. It will be dependent on how you interpret the context, because another person standing next to you will be completely different, right? Their perspective will be completely different. Their interpretation of the context will be completely different. Therefore, their meaning of the same phenomena would be different. So that's fine. I'm not arguing with that. The problem with like that I'm seeing here, it still doesn't really help define what meaning is. It's fine. You're talking about all these attributes of meaning. Yes, context, interpretation, subjectivity, but what is meaning? It doesn't really help define what it is.
I don't know. Because
But isn't that crazy?
all I can think of is, well, that's just your human mind thing. Like you try to interpret
Human
stuff
mind
in the
thing.
you just try to
Everything
interpret
is a
stuff
human mind thing.
for humans, but I'm just keep thinking that what there are things outside of us, right? That
Yes,
so that meaning is only
but it
correlated
has nothing to do
to
with the fact that
humans.
meaning has meaning.
So
No,
right,
we're
so
not
I guess
talking
the
about anything
fundamental
else. It's
so the
just humans
fundamental
trying to
question
figure out what their
no, I know,
language is.
but then I guess the fundamental question is, well, is there meaning outside of us? Or is it
No,
only
that's not the
with us?
question we're talking about. It's just a question of what is meaning to us.
Well, you had to
You're trying to run away from the question. Like,
no, I don't
I don't care about what other meanings there is. What is meaning that we can fathom at all? Like, what is it? What do we call the word meaning? Isn't it crazy that it's so difficult to define something like that? All words have definitions. They stand for something. You can define what a chair is or what a table is, no problem, right? So what's the problem with defining what meaning is?
what's the meaning of a chair?
Okay, good question. The meaning of a chair is just its function, right? No, plus the context. So it's function
Or
plus
is that?
context. Yeah, now I'm second guessing everything. Now I'm not sure of anything
Because
anymore.
I
What is
see
the meaning of
now
a chair?
I'm not sure because I think we're tripping up because now we might just be talking semantics in just the way of how words are, and yeah.
We're not educated enough, you're saying, to understand what the word means.
I mean, geez, no,
I think
I
you
don't
might be
think.
right. We're too
I
dumb for
mean,
this.
like, if
Went too deep, dude.
you can
It
ask
got too deep and too deep fried.
you could ask an expert of semantic of
Yeah.
language or what, and they probably can't even give you they
Well,
can only give you their
okay, let's check out
interpretation
the actual official
definition
definitions.
of
Yeah, the
meaning.
definition time. Drum roll. The definition of meaning generally refers to what something expresses or represents, as well as its significance or importance.
Okay.
So, meaning can be understood in several interconnected ways, such as expression or representation, significance or importance, intent or purpose, or even philosophical context. A meaning involves the inner, symbolic, or true interpretation of expressions, actions, or concepts, often related to their deeper significance beyond literal interpretation. Okay. So, meaning is literally like an internal
Catalog of
kind of interpretation or sensation that you get. Yeah, so this is helpful. This is why I think meaning is beyond words, essentially, is that you can experience meaning non-verbally and about things that don't have to do with words. But essentially, it's a cloud. It seems like it's a cloud of meaningful points of some kind of representation that you are interpreting. You're realizing the significance or importance of certain information within that perception that you are experiencing. Then you are discerning an intent or purpose in that significance. So essentially, it's kind of like meaning is how our neural network grasps and processes what's happening and
right.
turns it, gets actionable information about the world. So that's how it's connected to information.
Because you had to, okay, so the brain obviously has to have a interpretation of the data, right? So it's trying to make, in essence, trying to make sense of it, right? So it creates narratives, it creates meaning, it creates these connections
Yes.
so that it understood how to proceed about this. Like I see things.
Yeah.
Okay, I see these things exist. Okay, I see patterns. Okay, well,
So now, essentially, yeah, it's a continuous process. This is why it's been so difficult to talk about it, because it's constantly happening in the background, because it's part of this information acquisition process that we're constantly going on. For example, I'm sitting in front of the window right now. suddenly there could a bird could appear in the window, sit on the sill, and I don't know, have a fight with another bird. I will see all this, but the fact that I'm then seeing and labeling it, there's two birds fighting, it's essentially me seeing some unlabeled, unknown scene and then recognizing everything that's happening in it, because I now see they're birds, they're two birds, they're fighting, they're in conflict, and that's the meaning of what I'm seeing. That's how I'm constructing it. Because if I wasn't deriving that meaning or wasn't perceiving it correctly, I would just see some shapes moving up. So meaning is so inherent in our perception and reconstruction of reality that you could say our whole reality is just meaning, is us detecting and labeling the happening.
Yes, and also hallucinating. Because in the same example, I just say when you see that scene of two birds, you think it's fighting. What if you're not seeing the detail? Like, what if it's a male and female bird and they're doing a
Right. The
mating ritual
dance.
and you think it's fighting? Because in your head, you don't understand what they're doing and you think they were fighting because maybe someone that seems like fighting. So, see, that's where things can be misinterpreted. So, we can hallucinate a whole world of meaning, right?
Exactly.
Where things might seem meaningful when maybe it's not as meaningful as you think or otherwise, right? So this is the world that we live in, right? Is how well how this is how crazy the world is because everybody have different interpretations of whatever it is that's happening, right? So it's just the same way as okay, why is there always some kind of car crash happening? People's interpretation of their environment
Yeah,
is different. They
misread the
gauge
signals, the
gauge
signs.
how the distance is or whatever happening, right? It always happens. Somebody make a mistake or they misinterpret whatever phenomenon is going on, and there you have you have a problem. So this is what we're dealing every day, right? We're kind of interpreting all kinds of information, and we might miss a lot too. Because sometimes I recall if I miss some kind of information and misremembered, or especially in my sometimes that happens in my job, right? I'm supposed to get some items and move them, and I because of the amount of item there is, I might forget to pick up one, and I have to go back and go get it because what it's on the list, but somehow it skipped my mind that I forgot. What is that, right? How do you misinterpret that? Why is that a skip? Why did it skip your mind that that's the one that coming along with this and all that kind of different stuff, right? So mistakes happen, and almost like we sometimes we might the brain just misinterpret some information, like a
It's
different shape.
misinterpret it in all these other things like misremembering, missing something. This is where it connects to me with the whole topic of awareness because like in my mind, and one of the reasons I started to meditate is I thought that if you do actually, if there is a way to increase your awareness, say you become aware of what would be a good example. Okay, the good example is you become aware that you're drinking too much alcohol because some people do it and they just don't realize it. But that awareness is then, it's kind of almost arbitrary as well because for you to realize that you drink too much alcohol, you would have to make a more or less objective judgment based on any number of factors, including your overall health. But if you are not aware enough, you just keep drinking whatever, right? You can go into bed hammered, will have to wake up and have a hangover, and you will not think anything of it because somehow you think it's normal or you got used to it. But if only you had that level of awareness where it allowed you to see, like, oh, wait, what am I doing? I'm hurting my liver, I'm hurting my organs, I'm disrupting my sleep, etc., etc., etc. Why doesn't that, like, what takes for that realization to take place? It's not that complex, and people know about the bad effects of alcohol, but it's the awareness is not there. And I'm sure it's not the only factor, but still, it's something like that. And I'm using that example because that's pretty much what happened to me. Because I still drink sometimes, but I like rarely, right? Because I just don't want to. Because I realize that it's not worth it most of the times. And sometimes I just indulge in it just because there is maybe a mood once in a while. But it was only because my awareness kind of expanded to not only see what it does to you, to your health, but in the overall picture of me seeing my life, say drinking every day and maybe like once a month, those are two different lives altogether. But only because I am able to kind of keep it in my awareness, keep that level of perspective, like, okay, yeah, I know what it would be like if I drink every day and not. Is that does that make sense? Like, does that correlate with the level of awareness? Like, do you have any examples of how you've become aware of something and then subsequently changed your behavior or your opinion on something due to increased awareness?
You have a drinking problem.
That's all I can think about. No, not anymore.
No, I'm joking, but obviously, it's well, the first step, I guess, is you had an increase of knowledge because you gotta be able to know about the effect of alcohol and such, right? To know, okay, that's bad for me, and then you correlating the meaning with the awareness of that. Then you're trying to derive wisdom and kind of
So I guess it is
understanding.
connected with knowledge as well, right?
Well, knowledge is required, right? Because if you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't, so if somebody is illiterate, there are going to be so many things that they don't understand about the world because they have not have processed that data, that information being passed down in history, right? This is why culturally we are trying to maintain traditions and things because it's our ancestors telling us remember this because if you don't, bad things going to happen, right? That's the kind of thing that's being distilled, what we call wisdom, are just kind of like interpretation of knowledge, right? Wisdom is kind of an interpretation of knowledge. So to me, anyway, that's how I see it.
I remember the missing step. We were talking about information and wisdom last time. So the official kind of structure is data. So first you see data, which is unconnected bits of info.
Mm-hmm.
Then you
Yeah, yeah.
structure it into information. So information is kind of the next step of organizing the data. Then D DK wisdom. So data, information,
Knowledge and wisdom, then
I think knowledge. Oh, okay, yeah. Then it gets organized further into knowledge, but then after knowledge, there's understanding.
right.
So that
The
understanding
connections
and
between
only then comes wisdom. So in other words, you gathered some data from the world, you organized it more or less into some kind of groups or categories, let's say, and you got yourself information. Then you structured it further and maybe developed it into sciences. So you got knowledge at that point. But then you need to understand that knowledge. Essentially, you kind of need to derive the meaning from the knowledge to distill it into wisdom. So wisdom is kind of like the final distillation of information where you understood what it means and you understood the best possible application of that information for the, I don't know, the betterment of society and your life and everything. So this is how it's all connected. This is why these questions are popping up for me almost simultaneously, because this knowledge and information and meaning and wisdom, they're all connected. It's like us really reading the world and kind of ordering our understanding of it into something that's we can call good, a constructive force, you know.
because we can't help it, right? Because as human beings, when we're alive, when we questioning our existence or why this, why that, inevitably we just gonna have to construct some kind of meaning out of it, right? Like you were saying, all these levels of information, knowledge, and wisdom and things, we couldn't help it but to trying to figure it out because otherwise it's like, well, okay, what's the meaning of life? What's all this stuff happening? Like, what you got to have a reasonable level of understanding, I suppose, as a human being because you don't have any other choice, right? It's not like, oh, we're not like I guess we're not like typical animals, like all their behavior indicate, well, they just eat, sleep, and do all the things to survive, and that's about it. Seems like, I mean, I know animals are very intelligent, but they're not waking up at night thinking of, I'm having an existential crisis right now. you know? So what does that mean? What does that mean for our brain? Why do we form these kind of thought processes and sort of supposedly higher intelligence or higher thoughts and, these type of things, able to speak and communicate and reason, it's a marvelous thing, but we're like, why, you know? So it's, yeah, it's definitely, I mean, there's nothing we can do about it other than we will just continue to do this, and it is better for us because imagine how many dumb things been happening. A lot of things you read on the internet or whatever are just, I don't know, like some people just don't, I guess, get into all this beating deriving, and then they end up making so many mistakes in their
I
life,
guess
right?
it can be there's a levels of consciousness in that process, right? I think yeah, I think so because you can formulate meaning unconsciously, I guess, and consciously. But what would be an example of that? I guess consciously is when you're examining the process itself. This is why like I like talking about this stuff because it allows us to kind of investigate the whole structure, everything that's going on, and just confirm, is this what we want to be going on?
Right. Yeah.
This is why I think
I
it's so
mean,
valuable. Do we want to keep drinking vodka every day? Is this really necessary? Because to some people, it still is. And apparently, there are whole countries of people like that. And without saying any specific ones, but we all know the ones that we're talking about. No, but and then
not naming
and
names, but
yeah, but shots fired. And like, why is that? Why are there? It's kind of like some things are more important than others, and some values are better than others. And this is how you get to understand which is what, right? By kind of analyzing it and comparing it to what could be.
the thing is the general, because obviously, within the world, any part of the world, in any given country, there's going to be some what we interpret as bad things happening. Like
Yeah, there are all kinds of factors.
it's sort of, such as things like crime or like in the example you gave, over drinking and stuff like that. It's a
But
symptom of a.
yeah, to me, it's all connected. These are symptoms of some kind of underlying dysfunction of the society, right? Where because nothing happens for no reason. It's not that, of course, and that's I guess where all kinds of socio-economic studies would help to point out the different factors. But it almost feels like there's got to be something so fundamental that's causing all these things. Because I mean, surely in an ideal utopian type of society, there would be no reason to. No, that's not true. If you go to heaven, you'd want to party with some booze right away. And I mean, that's because it just feels good.
Was okay. So onto that question, right? Drinking, for example. Let's go back
Yeah,
to that.
yeah.
So
That's a good example.
obviously, it feels good when you're drunk, moderately. Obviously, you can become a problem if you drink every day. But
But also, let me just plug in there. It feels drunk only until you find a better feeling.
well,
And
yeah.
that's what meditators claim. Because some of the meditation branches, you can, with just meditation alone, get to such levels of bliss that nothing else has ever, not gonna compare. So it's almost like you're gonna have to decide for yourself. If I'm really such a hedonist, then for the top shelf bliss, you'd have to become a meditator. But ironically and paradoxically, you just really have to work long hard for it, even though at the end meditation is nothing than just ultimate kind of form of relaxation. That's how I would see it right now. But to get to that point, it's so funny because thinking of myself starting, 5 or so years back, this was such an effortful event. It was just like, okay, I need to sit down and meditate,
I didn't meditate.
and then I need to do it 15 minutes. No, that's nothing. I need to do half an hour. I need to do an hour, 2 hours, and it's really difficult to learn to do that because like in those you don't want to do that. That's just not how your psyche works. That's not how your attention works. You're like, what is this shit? I don't want to do this. This is dumb. But the irony is that if you do it well enough, diligently enough, and correctly enough, and for the right reasons, eventually you can actually get to the levels of bliss that are unparalleled. So bringing it back to what you were talking about, like, yeah, you drink alcohol because it is pleasurable. That just makes me think it's just such a cheap pleasure, essentially.
Yeah.
It's
It's a
cheap because you can go and buy it to the store at any point in time. And if you can buy something so readily, that's the definition of cheap.
it's a
And
low
cheap is
resolution.
rarely good.
Okay, think about this. It's a low resolution level of kind of seeking pleasure, if you will. Like you were saying, I just say if meditation can be that highest level of bliss, but the people, first of all, they're lazy enough. They're lazy. They don't want to do the work to get to that level, right? The alcohol is the most easiest answer because all we can just buy it, drink it, and it's cheap.
It's like a
It's
quick, cheap
Yes, but
solution.
it's quick and it's kind of achievable, say, quote unquote, right? Without any effort, right? It's a
And
low,
for many people, I guess it's good enough, right? It's
yeah.
good
So
enough.
you see, that's the problem we have, you know, things like the drug epidemic and all that, right? It's just people are, for whatever reason, they get hooked onto the thing, and then they just couldn't escape it because of the situation they're in, and then they try to seek an escape, right? I mean, a lot of times
Yeah,
people drink
it's
because their life
most of
sucks,
the time it's just an
so
escape.
but again, when they say their life sucks, it's their interpretation of their life. You see, this, okay, back to the question you asked
Yeah,
me a
that's how
while
it
ago.
connects to that.
The question what is it, or is there something in my life that I kind of became aware of, or that became something for me? It's just that the awareness of I am ultimately in control of how I interpret my emotions, or how I interpret how things are going in my life. So what I'm trying to do now, sometimes I fail obviously, but what I'm trying to do is recontextualize whatever situation is going on in a given period of my life, and reflect on, okay, what's the silver lining of this? So, let's say if something bad happens, what's the silver lining? Okay, anything that happens, just like anything, say, bad happens, there's always a good thing as well. It's these kind of things are like, it's all, if you go back to kind of how you interpret things, you can see the sort of the errors of our judgments in labeling good, bad, and all these kind of different labels, because things
Yeah,
are just what they are. Things happen in a given.
that's where it connects to that kind of conscious or unconscious process. So if it is unconscious, I think what happens is that essentially lower parts of your psyche, your more animal and your more older parts, are because not the only, I guess, but very prevalent, the emotions on those levels are fear and just the instincts I get: fear, hunger, lust. So like safety, reproduction, or in other words, the driving forces of eros and thanatos, right? The the lust and fear of death, like to reduce it to the very fundamental
The
things.
fundamental
And I
level, yeah.
think that's what happens if you are not aware, and if you're living life unconsciously, and if you're not trying to pay attention or have some kind of effort or framework or method for keeping you like on this process, for paying attention to this process. Like, hey, am I consciously assigning meaning to this, or am I unconsciously reacting out of base instincts?
Yeah, because I think, for most people, obviously everybody has this kind of general, how would I phrase this? Like this general, because basically I'm trying to say is everybody want their life to be better, right? And we all have this, but how better? We don't know. It's this kind of notion like, oh, we want to be better than what we have, or
Yeah.
what, or this is how, like, you
And
kind of have
even that is a trap.
fantasies. Exactly. It's a fantasy, right? It's a not unreal thing, but then you keep saying, oh, what if this happens to me? That would
Yeah,
be great. But you
the
see,
problem with it is that it never ends.
yes,
That's the
and then
problem. You
because
always
when
keep
you
thinking,
define.
it can be better or it should be better.
Right. So you see, that's where anxiety comes, because now you set the level. I want that level. I want to get to that. And if I don't get it, I feel sad. This is how I mean, lots of people are kind of falling into that trap of be like, oh yeah, I'm going to set a goal and set this kind of fantasy, what I want to do. And then when they don't get it, they're like, oh, my world is crashing down, and nothing matters anymore, and all this kind of nihilism or what have you, right? So we're kind of schizo in that way, right? Where we kind of like basically manic periods, and then you're fine, and then you're not fine, So basically, I think that we got to stop that cycle, because you got to be just realize enough that you are in control of how you interpret what happens, and you need to recontextualize that towards your own sets of standards and moral standards, and sort of your own level of what, because you first have to define what will make you content and happy. Content, I guess, maybe not exactly happiness, but so you're gonna have some principles by which you need to live your life. Obviously, to realize such principles, meaning that you need to learn a lot about the world, and this is why not only general education is important, but also wisdoms, right? Knowledge and wisdom. You want to build that
Yeah,
up
you
so
need to
that you
be
can have a sense of what my principles are. And I'm going to live to that for my own happiness and contentment, because other people have no idea what they want. They're like, I have no idea. I think I want that.
yeah,
I want
or
this.
how to differentiate good from bad.
Right.
Essentially, you need to be involved and invested in it as your personal lifelong project, and that's what it means. Like to do it consciously is you have it as part of life. It's like part of mental hygiene, I would say. This is why meditation is recommended to people, because it can take various shapes and forms, but one of them can be a just conscious examination of what I'm doing and why. And is this aligned? It's like, is everything in alignment? Are my actions in alignment with my expectations, with my values, etc. So yeah, it's actually a good way of thinking about it.
And
Kind of concentrating on your own alignment throughout your whole life in everything.
yeah, and it's not easy, because like there's one thing to define something as your life goal or your principles, and another one to stick with it. Yeah, I think for
Yeah.
humans it's very hard, because a lot of times we're just lazy bastards. We're just like, I don't want to do that. I don't. It's just like just kind of baseline of like, oh yeah, I already have. It's almost like we're just vacillating between extreme fear and extreme boredom. There's that kind of thing. Because we now in modern society, modern life, we have achieved survival. Basically, if nothing catastrophic happens, we can basically survive up to whenever old age, if nothing else happens to you, bad happen to you, you know? Because we already have the supply chain of food, of shelter, mostly figured out, right? So we're living in this kind of basically comfort in compared to our ancestors, how they live, right? But so now we almost have the privilege of being bored. Imagine back in the day, you cannot be bored. You always be fearful about survival. There's no time for you to be bored. You always, something is going on that's gonna kill you. You know. So now that we're basically, we have more time in our hands, and now we start thinking about, the interpretation of life. Because back in the day, it's very easy. Just survive. That's it. There's nothing else. But now that we have achieved to the level now, we start worrying about, what's the meaning of life? What is what is
I
how
guess,
how am I
yeah.
supposed to live, right? How am I supposed to structure my life now? Because now you can think about that without having to be fearful of your life, of being unable to survive.
Yeah, it's definitely a luxury. So, as if to drive this point further, I wanted to switch to a slightly adjacent topic and rubric, but our life is so good that we can afford to talk about the meaning of the movie Jiu-Jitsu with Nicolas Cage.
That's your pivot?
That's my sudden pivot. And I can explain how
Explain
it
yourself.
connects to everything that we've been
Explain
talking about.
yourself. Because
Because
how
I mean, I hope I can, because I'll have to.
I thought we were having a great philosophical and kind of wisdom-filled
I thought I'd
discussion,
mix things up.
and then you.
You didn't expect that, did you?
No, come on. Why did you have to?
It's done.
Now that's in my head. Now
It's done. You can't think about anything else.
you know what this is. Okay. You know what this is. What it feels like. The
Yeah.
equivalence of this is seeing you dipping dumplings into sour cream. Like that's how it. That's how it feels to
That's
me.
how
It's
much of
like
a blasphemy it is.
That's the feeling, okay? That's the feeling that I get. We're talking about interpretation of feelings, right? I mean, meaning. This is meaningful, right? This is the
Yes.
meaning.
This is the meaning that you derive from this situation. We're going meta, bro. This is perfect then. This
Okay,
is exactly
for
what I.
those watching, we do recommend that you watch this movie. I think it's one of the
I mean,
best
I,
ever.
I think it might just have to be a recurring theme then, because the depth that we could plunder in that
Oh,
phenomenon of a. You see, like sometimes I can't sleep at night because I try to figure out what kind of reality would produce a movie like that, you know? And at that point, it becomes like a dead giveaway that we're living in a simulation because there's no other possible
wow.
explanation that I can come up with when no matter how I can try to approach it, I can't even, I can't even begin to even because first of all, what do you even remember about that movie? What's something that you remember just on the surface?
It was,
It's such a abrupt turn, but yeah, this
but
is
it's interesting because it's such a. I don't even know how I
yes, you don't
felt
even
when I
know.
watched.
No, you experience new type of emotions.
Yes, it was a new type of emotion because it never happens in that way. You see, it's so
Yeah.
unique. Like that, I mean, how do you explain something like that? It's like the fact that it exists, and I think this is what happens when you have a cognitive dissonance. I think it's kind of the similar feeling when you have when
Yeah.
something like it
Because
doesn't.
you're trying to comprehend, okay, this is a professional movie made by professionals
And Nicolas Cage,
with the rock star
I mean,
actor who's been in the zone for decades, Nicolas Cage. And then you're seeing it and you're like, hold
hold
on.
on,
Hold on, no.
wait a
Okay,
minute.
let them cook, and you're like, no, and then you start to doubt yourself.
Then you and then
Am
you
I off
question your
here?
life,
Like,
right?
what
You
is
question your
happening?
life. It's like
What is going on?
it's
How
like a
did I arrive
cosmic
at this
joke.
point?
It's like a cosmic
Yeah,
joke, you know?
and then
It's
you're still watching it, and I'm like, I, I'll need to finish it, right? But then it's so
yeah.
difficult to keep watching it because you realize like I'm just wasting my time.
But you couldn't keep your eyes away,
You
you know?
can't
You couldn't
because
keep your eyes peeled
it's
because
like a sunk cost fallacy, right? You're like, well, surely like something will happen to justify the existence of this movie in this movie, and then it just never happens, and then the credits roll, and you're just like, and then it's this movie. Okay, I realize this movie is kind of like a koan, it's a koan in a movie form, dude. This is the only way to see it and not go insane. So, and I'm telling you, we could be talking about this movie for many, many episodes straight and not even scratch the surface of what it is in its true nature. Because, I mean, just imagine being Nicolas Cage, okay?
well, you
And being
can't.
in that movie.
I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
He's such a is a godlike figure. You basically you can't interpret God, right? What is God thinking? You mean the one true God? He's the one true God. I
I'm
mean,
just curious, what was he thinking doing that movie? Because you like just imagine you're Nicolas Cage and you're shooting those scenes, right? Where you're dressed the way he was dressed in that movie and just saying these inane things like as if he is Master Yoda that has nothing to do with anything. And the fact that there's no Jiu-Jitsu in the movie called Jiu-Jitsu and everything else and all of these things and none of them make sense. And you're standing there as Nicolas Cage in front of the cameras, and you're like, "Yep, this is what we're doing. This is
but
fine. This is what I
this is the
wanted to do
difference.
today."
This is the difference between a God level of um of being because you can't comprehend
You
the
can't.
thought
The God
process.
works in mysterious ways for sure.
Yes, because you cannot, there's no way, because what makes sense for him, you can comprehend it. This is like, it's almost like the gospel. Like, you can read it many times, okay, but you still don't understand it. No way, right? It's something more than just mortal comprehension.
And I mean, we could dig through it from multiple different directions, but I wanted to start with something fun and something that's already other people done. So I went on IMDb and I looked through the reviews on there, and as you can imagine, there were some other passionate moviegoers there who had different levels of analysis of the movie as well. So I'll start with the best and generous one, which gave it 10 out of 10 stars. Okay, and it's all public, so I'll just read some of it. But the 10 out of 10 one is that my teenage son and I have developed a tradition of watching Nicolas Cage movies, preferably bad ones, when he is off sick from school. So kind of like us, right? We have it on our agenda to watch
It's
all Nicolas
something that
Cage
we
movies
do.
at some point. We
It's
do want
something
to
that
do
we
that.
do.
So something like us. This movie did not disappoint. I mean, it's absolutely terrible, and we could not stop laughing. The main character looks like he's recently been lobotomized and just stares moronically during everyone else's dialogue. Think Jean-Claude Van Damme if you ordered him from Wish. I thought it was a bold move not to cast the only recognizable name as the lead, that name being Mr. Cage, but it turns out they really just are that stupid. Don't worry though, because Nicolas Cage delivers with such classic mid-fight quips as, "That's my favorite chair. I thought you'd find it comfortable." That's a line in the script that Nicolas Cage is like moving, like they're sitting and they're doing tryouts, right? And that's your line. You read it. "That's my favorite chair. I thought you'd find it comfortable." Do you feeling that character, Mr. Cage? Oh yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
I'll do
definitely.
it. I'll do it. Other lines. "I make hats out of newspapers." That's a line that Nicolas Cage says in that movie.
I'm telling you, man, it's so meta that there's no other interpretation, you know? It's
I think you'd need to have a level of awareness to understand what's happening, because it is so meta that you just like, if you're just taking it for face value, you're just not seeing what's happening. There is a whole other intention behind this whole performance,
yeah.
and my
There's no
spiritual
other
development and my
way to
spiritual
read it. I
path.
mean,
This is one of my motivations, is just to achieve a level of spiritual development where I can comprehend the genius involved here, because clearly I'm not there yet.
yeah. The level of cosmic understanding that you have to write such a script and to for all involved, you know, both getting that script, being able to perform in it,
Yeah, for
and
all the things to
understanding.
come together, at no point did anybody say, "Wait a second.
Hold on,
Nah."
for realsies?
Yeah. No, everybody's like, "This is it. Great. This is the one. This is gonna be
Great
perfect.
success.
This is going to be the one." He does have an incredible talent of being left behind at a location by the group of warriors, only to be at the place they're arriving at later. Don't think about that too much. It will never be explained. Good point. The rest of the cast were just a group of walking stereotypes, which was just perfect. The wise, stoic Asian man who will definitely die honorably at some point. The black man who is afraid of everything and cracks jokes that never land. The female warrior who you better not underestimate. She could break you like a twig sunshine. I mean, you really couldn't want more in a bad movie. See, these are some real connoisseurs, dude. They are understanding it from a meta perspective.
Well, they're more courageous than us, I think, because I think we kind of there was a time we basically checked out. We were too chicken out, man. I think
I think
we
so. I
we
don't
we, we
think
should
we've.
have we should have more achievement under our belt in the project of watching the One True God's the entire filmography, you know. But we're chickened out. I mean, we're not as strong as these people, man. It's just like
Chickened out,
that's a
and
shame.
also just like the level of concentration that it requires. Like, I thought I have it, but no, I
You
can't.
see,
I
you
can't.
need to meditate more before you can
No,
do
yeah,
this,
I'm not
you
there
know?
yet. I'm telling you, this was just troublesome to realize for myself. Like, I couldn't, like, is it me? Is it turns out it is me. Um,
It's a your
so
problem. Yeah.
it
It's
it
not
is.
the yeah. The universe is fine, you know? It's It's just
This review continues. I'm sure there's a plot in there somewhere. I think I asked my son about 5 times, what on earth is happening? To be met with a reflection of my bemused face. Still now, I can't figure it out. Maybe it's because it sets up a vague pretense, then doesn't move forward. The protagonist, if you could bring yourself to envision that, has amnesia that for some reason just doesn't improve at any point until the end. There's zero arc. The CGI is something to behold. Imagine the quality of late 90s kids' TV CGI. It was dreadful. My favorite part was when they revealed the alien's face. I was in tears by that point, a mixture of laughter and desperation. This movie has no redeeming features. The acting, the camera work, the costumes, the dialogue, the plot, if there is one. Nothing can save this absolute masterclass in how not to make a film. And because of this, we loved it and have been quoting it ever since. 10 out of 10 recommend.
there we go. That's how you
Wow.
trans that's how you transcend, right? This is the sublime. Like you get to you transcend the entire genre, not just genre, the entire the idea of movies, you know? Like you
Yeah, you think you
transcend,
know what
you think
movies
you're
are?
watching a movie. You think you're watching a movie, but no, this is much more than that, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like Norm Macdonald used to do those jokes. He would be telling a long joke with a long setup, and it's long, 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 long. You're listening to it until you realize that he's just wasting your time, and that's what funny is, and that's what's funny, because you realize there's no joke,
Yeah. But
and that
that's
itself is a joke. Imagine
but
how insane that
there you
is.
go. That's the level.
I
That's
think
the
that's the
kind of
level.
meta level that, it gets to.
Because once you're in the creative juices and you've been a professional for decades, it's all too simple. What are you gonna do? Like impressions and perform this guy? No, you're gonna have to do something that is so invisible that it takes a real connoisseur to, whoa, is that what's going on? Is that what he's doing? I didn't expect that. I've never seen anything like that. That's next level. And it is. There's something in the middle. There's a 5 out of 10 stars, a review that's titled, Wow. For me, this movie was like a train wreck. Even though it's terrible, you just can't look away. Watching this was an internal battle for me. The greatest fight sequence in this film will not be on the actual streets, but will be fought internally. That's a great line, actually.
There
Between
you go.
your
Yeah.
higher self wanting to stop wasting your own time and your lower self wanting to laugh and see if it could possibly get any worse. Oh, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good way to
That
put it.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, the whole time, you're just like, well, like,
Yeah, you're. It is a struggle. That's so aptly put. Nicolas Cage, I love many of your films, but this, like quite a few of the unfortunate choices of movies you've been in, I have to ask, what were you thinking? I guess money is money. Of course, it's easy for me to be making comments from the sidelines, I suppose, what I know. But oof, this was so bad. Heck, it was fun to have a few drinks and make fun of this, so I give it 5 stars for entertainment quality. See, this guy derived his own meaning out of this. He's like, okay, you know what? It's good enough for something. For something, if you get shit faced drunk and if you stop comprehending and judging everything, then it's fine. You're just looking at moving pictures on a screen and it's good. You just have to get on a certain level, you know?
this is how, what we were talking about earlier, how work of art get created. It's a creation process between the creator and the audience, Like
Yes.
there's different levels of interpretation, and you use it however you like, right? It's like it's being created and you just do what you will with it, you know? People have different.
think I think that's the right attitude. That's probably what Nicolas Cage's attitude is towards this, because yeah, you can't control how your art is going to be interpreted. Not really.
Yeah.
We'll never know what was the meaning for Nicolas Cage to make that movie, but I'm pretty sure it can only be done with the level of freedom and non-attachment that you achieve
Yes, yes. But you see,
to
this
to
is
not give a
why
single one.
you see, Nicolas Cage can do nothing wrong. He got to that level as a human
Yes, he
being.
transcended the whole paradigm.
He almost cannot be. He cannot do anything. He can't. He's unstoppable. Like he can't. There's nothing that he does that you can be
Yeah, he
saying,
freed himself
"Well,
from
that's wrong.
any
Well,
limitations and judgments.
this is unacceptable or whatever." No, he's like we just
No,
like no
you just
matter what
don't
he does,
understand it.
yeah, no matter what we do, we're gonna be like, okay, you have to agree. Now it doesn't matter what or how, you just like, yeah, I accept it, because you see, imagine you have an actor who has your own any normal person, right? If you're an actor, a normal actor, you have your self-esteem, you have your whole career, thinking about your careers,
But
thinking about
those are
okay, what
just
my legacy.
anchors and attachments
Exactly,
and
exactly.
boxes that constrain
But
you.
you see, he got to the level where very few
He
actors
tapped
get
into
to,
the full creative potential.
where he can do anything, and it's fine. There's no problem. There's no, he can just do whatever he likes, and everybody accepts it. Everybody will have to accept it. There's no other way. You can't just be like, "You want to do?" So I don't know if for a human being, I think that's
It's
one of the
unassailable.
great levels that you can achieve. I guess one of the highest achievement that you can is high praise.
Yeah.
You know.
High
I mean,
praise.
no, serious. I'm serious. Like, imagine
I'm
as a
serious too,
person,
yeah.
as a person who can get to that level to do
Yeah,
whatever it is
I'd
you
want that.
want, to do whatever it is you want with your life, like that. It's I don't know, man. We're not worthy. That's the thing. How do you get
So
to
that's
that
why I
level?
want to study this thing. This is an entrance, to the Olympus, where if you just try hard enough, you'll see the entrance into the brilliance that it is.
And okay, and for those watching, don't think that we're just making jokes here. Like you're thinking we're playing this bits, right? This whole bits about this movie or Nicolas Cage. We're actually trying to tell you that this is how you should live your life, that you get to direct how you want to direct it, right? That there's nothing in this world that limits other than you yourself limiting yourself. Because what's stopping you from doing the things that you want to do or what you try to achieve is just your inner, this inner mind talking to you, And Nicolas Cage has showed us that you can transcend that. Like you can literally just not give a fuck about the inner nagging voice, and you just do whatever it is that you want to do. Okay, that's how you live your life. You have to
This is
have
the
the
key.
courage. You have to
This
have
is
the
the final
courage.
escape.
You have to have the courage to do whatever. Like you don't care no
Anything.
more. And see, that's the thing. Fear is what holding us back, right?
Yeah, the only thing that can stop you.
That can stop you is your own fear. Nothing else in the world outside of yourself can stop you. Only ourself can stop yourself. And this is a case in point that somebody who has transcended all of that, because he just, for one thing, he's just honest with himself. He's just like, yep, this is how I want to, I don't care. And think about it. He is prolific. He's working. The guy is working. Like, how many actors? I mean, there's very few actors work as much as he does,
For
right?
decades, dude.
And continuously and very
For
enthusiastic.
decades.
He joining all these projects, doing all these movies. I mean, you think if you're somebody who made it, like an actor, you're like, I can just sit on my laurels. I don't have to do anything. I can just retire and just basically be rich and, sipping mimosas on the beach or whatever, right? You could do whatever you like. But no, he goes back to work. That's how much he loves what he's doing. He does not give a flying F about what anybody else thinks, because it's only what matters is what he wants to put out into the world, right? This is me. This is how I want to live my life. And this is it. I love my work. I'll do it. I'll do it. And this is the kind of content that we are trying to, there's always a meaning you can derive from it. Like what we're talking about, there's no joke that's meaningless. There's no, you think these are like a joke. You think we're playing around, be like, this is funny, like playing this bit, like playing a character, right? Playing, I mean, how long has this tangent been going? Half an hour, right? But
It's just the beginning.
but what I'm saying is there is a meaning within everything in your life, outside of your life, whatever it is. one point about being aware is that you have to start thinking about these things, you know? And you can make these connections and interpretations and deriving meaning out of that, right? Because you can derive, man, it's really the sky is the limit, right? In terms of what meaning you can derive and what subject matter you can put together and kind of deriving meaning out of it, you can is almost infinite. You can read so many different things and kind of extract wisdom from it, you know? And that's what we're saying. You need to think about your life. Think about all these things and the connections that it has, right? As simple as something like I, this movie, Jiu-Jitsu with Nicolas Cage. First of all, if you haven't seen it, go see it. But you see, even this, we're talking about this, right? And yet, I think we can derive something that's very useful for us to think about how you want to project your life, how you want to go on with your days, you know, day in and day out. Think about it, right? It's you got to do
And Jiu-Jitsu can teach you about
can
that.
teach you about that because it's showing you, it's very deliberate, right? It's like we're showing you, okay, what it means to be alive, okay? What, you know, you can bring forth something like this into reality, you know? So whatever,
This is why it's like a cone, because if you just keep thinking about it and why it happened and how it happened that way, it's eventually just gonna break your mind and it will free you from all these constraints that you're boxing yourself.
yeah.
That's the path.
Because think back to our own lives, right? How many from the moment that you are from your childhood, right? You start understanding more about the world, about your relationship to other people, to society, to the world in general. And you keep asking yourself, okay, what's my goal here? What's the thing that I want to do? You know, the whole time we're just confused. We've been I think I can only speak for myself, but I can kind of extrapolate that this is kind of common for a lot of people. From the moment that we went to school to when you become a grown ass man, there was not a moment that you aren't just confused. We're always confused because we don't know the exact kind of trajectory of our lives. It's all interpretation, projections, and what have you, right? So meaning that you're always going to have that doubt in your head because because obviously you're a logical person, you're a rational person. You start thinking about the internal logic of all the things that you're doing and kind of reacting to the world and how you interpret things. But I think one of the crucial things that we often forget is this kind of internal engine of it should be the internal driver that kind of not just fulfill the meanings that we for our lives, but that because you create your own meanings, you create your own life, you know? Because a lot of the times I think we're guilty of, many of us is guilty of being passive in terms of we're just receiving information from the wider world. It's like, see what's on the news. Oh, this is happening. Or you just receive it passively. You're not thinking about it. You're not thinking about the correlations, the relationships, and sort of the what that means to you, right? Kind of like what can you use that information and kind of derive something out of it, and that can direct your own trajectory. I think a lot of the time we're just like, oh, what's popular, people like this, oh, I'm going to follow this thing, I'm going to do this because other people are doing it too. It's just constantly sort of comparing yourself to other people, and you're not even thinking about your own what your own meaning is. You're like, other people derive meaning for you, you know? Like I think that's the problem with these days is like I think all of us are guilty of just being lazy mentally, just like, oh, we're just gonna passively receive all this information without interpreting it.
Yeah, without making your own meaning.
Right, because that process takes power, it takes energy, it takes effort and intention to do to formulate an entire kind of line of basically it's almost like a line of code you're writing. You know, you have to actively write it to let it make sense for you, and not just be like, this is how propaganda gets people because when people don't think, you drink the Kool-Aid because it's always there. That's the purpose. That in the news, whatever is going on, there's just constantly propaganda, constant propaganda. Somebody is projecting this willingly. They have a goal in mind, what they're trying to do when they do these things, And when you, the guinea pig, when you just receive this passively, you're like, yeah, yeah, I agree, because it's there all the time, and then eventually, you just subconsciously agree with it without questioning. This is why people get riled up for certain things. This is why riot happens or whatever it is, right? It's this thing that gets political because of all these things, and then people have these. I don't know if you see all these things that happen in the real world. It's crazy how that line of thinking could become, and you have all those individuals regurgitating the narrative, right? So I mean, in this new world, like we need to start interpreting for ourselves. Now of course the danger of it is misinterpretation, and also kind of you also have to have a humble disposition that you might be wrong. I think the problem, all of it is like people, okay, when you say, oh, I should have my own sense of meaning and stuff like that, but but that doesn't mean, it does not mean that you will be like, I'm the only one that's right and everybody's wrong. You cannot have that kind of mentality because you are not, you can be wrong. There are many things that you can be wrong at. It is your interpretation, but the world is much more complex than we think. So you have to have the disposition that you will see. With more information, I interpret it, and you kind of be constantly readjusting your directives. Things do change, right? So you have to be kind of flexible in a way that, okay, I could be wrong, but I still need to interpret for myself what it means for me. So I know that's kind of long-winded, but this is kind of the thing I
This
do
is
want to
what
say
happens
about it.
when you start thinking about jiu-jitsu.
It's this, yeah.
It's just the entrance to
And what
life
we're saying
lessons that
here,
are
and you see what we're saying here, the meta part of it is that even as something as Jiu-Jitsu, this movie, can give you deep meaning. It's really
see,
depending
this is
on
why I
how
wanted to
you
talk about it. It's very meaningful.
see. I didn't know you were gonna bring that
I don't
up.
know I don't know why
You
you were
know,
laughing so hard at the beginning.
come on, it's part of the
It was the
fun.
perfect segue.
It's a perfect segue, yeah. Because
You
I'm
want to
sure
talk about meaning? That's
it,
meaning.
lots of people are gonna be like, "What the hell is this? These guys on about?
What
Dude,
are
what
they what are they
what the
on?
what the fuck?"
What are they talking about?
But that's it. If you
What?
watch this far, then you understand, okay, this is something that
Yeah.
we're arriving at. It's not.
Yeah, hopefully you're understanding what's happening here. And then I do want to pivot a bit more into the philosophy of this movie next, which is, but let me just read. So we read the 10 out of 10 review, the 5 out of 10, and I just wanted to read a couple lines from 1 out of 10 reviews, of which, of course, there was a majority. One of them said, titled, "1 star is generous. This is the worst film I've ever seen in my life." Another one said, "This movie is just so bad. You'd think there would be some jiu-jitsu in a movie that's called Jiu-Jitsu, but no."
Psych.
Another one said, "If you don't care about quality dialogue, plot, acting, fighting scenes, CGI, and life in general, this may be the movie for you." See, you just have to free yourself from these expectations, and then it all, like, it works. They were saying, if, however, you actually enjoy your life, save yourself the torture and self-inflicted harm and walk away. Seriously, I thought it can't get any worse, but it does, and then it does it again and again. Some people give it a high rating because it's so bad it's good. They lie. It's worse than that, which makes it bad again. And it's not funny. It's annoying. There's a very big difference. The tone, the seriousness with which the actors take themselves. The actors themselves and the energy they put off just made me cringe so often, like fingernails on chalkboard. I don't understand how rubbish like this can even get made in 2020. See, this is like people even forgot this is sometimes it do be like that. They have to be reminded once in a while that, oh yeah, it's possible.
Stuff
It's still possible.
stuff
We can still
happens.
do it.
Stuff happens, man.
Worst film ever. Only 1 out of 10 because Nicolas Cage. I can't believe this film is real. The dialogues are so bad and I want my life back. Don't watch this movie. I like trash movies, but this was way too much. I don't know what else to say. I have a list with Nicolas Cage movies, and we're trying to watch all of them. So this was quite a tough one. I hope the other ones will be more than 1 out of 10. See, yeah, this is relatable. We also try to watch Nicolas Cage movies, and some are more difficult than others.
But you see, why is this a phenomenon? Why do people do this? You see?
because they're trying to comprehend. They don't,
That's
they
it.
can't, they
Yeah,
can't even, so
that's
they're like,
it.
what is this? There's no way this is a movie, right? No, it's a movie. He made another one. He made 3 this year. How is this possible? This is
I
not
must
real.
see it.
We
I
live in
must see it.
live in a simulation. I need to figure out what it is. There's got to be something in there, right? And every time. It's like a trick of the mind of sorts. It's like you're being bamboozled repetitively, but you just refuse to believe that you're gonna get bamboozled again. It's like, surely not this time. There's no way, dude. How many times have I seen these Nicolas Cage movies? He can't possibly make
But the thing
one worse
is,
than the previous one.
every time you hear he made a new movie, you want to watch it. Like
You're gonna
that's
have to
how
check it out.
powerful he is because he just had that kind of pull with people, you know?
That was some of the reviews, and then I was playing around with kind of, I wanted to formulate the Tao of Jiu-Jitsu, and I wanted to see how can it be seen holistically. Like, what is it? What does it have to teach us? What is it even based on? What did people try to put in it of value that they thought this is what it's going to be? And I worked with AI to put something together. So this is a little attempt to formulate the Tao of Jiu-Jitsu. At first glance, it's nonsense. A sci-fi martial arts mashup where a chosen warrior faces an extraterrestrial in ritual combat. But if you tune your perception differently, you'll sense that it's a modern myth echoing an ancient truth. Conflict is the medium through which balance renews itself. Okay, it's conflict is the theme in that movie, and somehow it has to do with balance and renewing itself. But the Tao of Jiu-Jitsu is this: the universe sends challenges not to punish, but to maintain equilibrium. The enemy is not other; it is the reflection of what must be mastered within. See, that's a pretty deep way of seeing it, because it's in the movie that alien, the ripoff of the Predator concept. It's the alien that comes to Earth to fight the best jiu-jitsu fighters. And don't take it on the surface level. It's a metaphor for conflict that comes from within. Let's see what else. Nicolas Cage's character, the ragged, half-mad hermit warrior, plays the role of the sage who has seen too much, one who dances on the thin edge between chaos and wisdom. He doesn't seek to win, he seeks to complete the cycle. His rambling monologues are like the Tao Te Ching spoken through a cracked mirror, nonsense that spirals towards truth. Yeah, that is true. Like, I believe that's what his character was aiming at, right? He is this ragged, just I'm too old for this shit type of guy who is just trying to like convey some meaningful information and intel and wisdom to these young, promising fighters, but he's just saying things like, I make paper hats out of newspapers and stuff. And then you're like, what is the meaning of this deep wisdom? So that's an apt metaphor, I would say. Confrontation that keeps the wheel of Tao turning. So the Tao of Jiu-Jitsu could be summarized as life itself is a tournament. The adversary is a teacher. I like that. That's kind of meaningful. Madness and wisdom are siblings. That's pretty powerful too. Madness and wisdom. Yeah, because like madness could be just a perspective so far removed that you would have to go through all the crazy things that Nicolas Cage's character went through to understand that that's wisdom. But to a person who is young, uninitiated, and inexperienced, it sounds like mad rabblings.
It
So
is.
this makes
Because think,
sense.
okay, let's just one thing, right? Imagine you tell somebody who have never exposed themselves to the Tao or Zen or meditation or anything, and you tell them this thing, that parable, the before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water, and after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. This statement, if you tell somebody who has no, exposure to any of this,
Yeah,
they'll be
it's
like, "What?
meaningless.
Yeah, what kind of are you crazy? Like what do you mean? Like what does that statement even mean?" right? They have no context for that. It's like they don't know. In their life, they have not thought about such things that they think that's madness. You're crazy. Why would you do that? Why would you, even if you understand the metaphor, and it's like, well, why would you want to do that? That's not what life is about.
It's very true, especially with that saying. Like the whole reason, I believe that particular line, I think it works kind of like as a dog whistle because it's true. You'll only understand it once you arrived at that point yourself, which means you walked all the posts. You visited all the possible meanings of like maybe life is about this, or maybe I should be striving towards that or pursuing this. But only after you've exhausted all those efforts and you came to the conclusion, oh yeah, life it's just whatever is happening, and that's the point. Only if you arrive at that yourself through your own kind of admission of like, yeah, that's what it is, you will not get it. Like I've struggled with that specific line for so long that it's been ridiculous.
Yeah, it's because you can conceptually understand it to a level, if you do study enough, then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I get it conceptually, but to actually live it,
Yeah, to
that's a
actually
whole nother
understand it
thing.
and
That's a
agree
whole
with
nother
it
thing,
based on personal
So
experience.
this is why sometimes knowledge can be a double-edged sword, because maybe sometimes it happens that the more you know, the more trapped you are, because you are being trapped by that rigid thinking, because you think that, oh, I have all these data in my head that I can just use to. But
Exactly. This is why there's such a big emphasis on this kind of unreliability of concepts and forms. Because any time you try to assert something or say, oh, it is like that, you're just boxing in infinite potential into something that is that limited and something specific. But the point that sages are trying to convey, I believe, when they're just trying to dissuade you from it, is that infinity is better than formed something because you can enjoy infinity infinitely, and if you just have something boxed in and something specific, that's all you have. You have this own little thing.
yeah, so this is something you can derive from analysis of Jiu-Jitsu. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it's
mean, I really like that line. Like this line is actually pretty badass. Madness and wisdom are siblings. It's very true. It's uh, and like that's what they say also about, every genius is a little bit mad. It's about that. It's about the fact that they have access to something, some kind of perspective or knowledge or disposition, which is so far removed from most people, from most perspectives, that yeah, some people will just see it. Like, what are you mad? You have no, we don't know what you're talking about.
because you see the issue is that most society form this kind of common core consensus, right? And
Yeah,
that is can be a problem as well. Even though yes, you get cohesion, you get a sense of community, you get a sense of belonging. Yes, that's great. Part of the problem is that if you don't have these kind of out of the box thinking, or having
everything
these
gets too
in
stale, right?
yeah, have these individual inputs of like, hey, what about this? I mean, think about all the great art that we enjoy. It's only because that artist did something different that like
Yeah,
nobody have ever seen. It's like, what the
risk it
hell?
all.
How would you do that? That's not allowed. You can't do that. But that exact thinking is just it tells you all you need to know, that these people have the limiting perception that things should be this way or that way. So
Yeah, this is what kind of true art is, I think. It's literally about breaking the boundaries and really trying to push the envelope. And art's been evolving so much. We've, I think we're almost forgetting what it's like, what it really means to break boundaries, because true art in that regard should be paradigm shifting. So that's what was happening in the 20th century, when Malevich painted the black square. It was unprecedented because, yeah, before then it's like, yeah, you need to paint the landscape of the whole thing, and it has to have a form, and it has a subject and object back. It's whole science to it. And you're like, nope, here's a black square. Deal with it. And people are like, well, yeah, I guess you can do that. Like it stumped people, and this was, just one of the little
Well,
things.
a lot of people are reacting just like that meme, the whole meme, like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but you see, this is the kind of, if we kind of interpret humanity as energy, as society, what have you, as a sort of this kind of levels of energy,
Which I kind
sometimes,
of think is a very accurate, the most top level of way of interpretation,
because
because it definitely
sometimes
feels like that.
you need that injection of like something higher level, a spike of energy, right? Because society can just have its own kind of, okay, we're mingling, we're having this kind of working relations, like things are okay, stable. But the moment it becomes too stable, like you need something to renew
It's
the
like
whole,
energy dissipates in those stable structures, right? It kind of
right?
it's like there's not enough
Or or you can interpret it
movement or
as, okay,
something.
there is no stable because entropy, right? You can have something relatively stable for a period of time, but eventually everything, goes back to, I don't know if it's correct to say, but randomness or, entropy or what have you. And so the energy levels are kind of like, this is just like, I mean, if you think about your own life, every single day, your energy levels are different. You
Yeah,
wake up
like
low
fluctuating.
energy, you might need a cup of coffee to get you going. And, midday, because we're a creature of, we're reacting to our environment, we're mostly, our activities are mostly done in the daytime because that's when, when the sun is the highest, we have the highest most energy. And then, there's a cycle, right? We're creatures of this earth, and this is how it happens. And yeah, you can interpret everything as a form of energy, right? And so artistically speaking, all the artists are doing like, hey, have you noticed this stuff? I'm like, I'm of course it's their interpretation, but what they're saying is, well, I think there's something here, right? When they're showing their art, right? They're like, hey, maybe this is something worth thinking about, and you can say this with visual medium, or you can say with writing, with books, with fictions as well. Like some of the greatest stories are like, people are like, yeah, I agree with that. Or, this is something noteworthy.
Yeah, it's like a spotlight of attention. It's like, hey, look at this. This is significant. This is meaningful. Yeah, like
And the thing is, because everything is changing at all times. You need to update your kind of the general interpretation of things because things do change,
yeah, and definitely artists what they produce reflects, the times, reflects what goes into their consciousness and what comes out. So in that regard, all art and all output from all of us is both a reflection of what's going on in the culture, and it's kind of like it's some kind of a processing point. So every person is receiving everything that's going on. It's like a loop almost, but there's still some kind of processing that's happening, because when you consume someone else's art, which already has certain inherent meaning imbued by the author, right? So author meant something like, oh, this is meaningful to me, here's my art. When you consume it, you interpret that meaning, but the meaning you derive from it is still unique to you. It's essentially, you are creating new meaning at that point. And if it's truly new and truly unique, you are then inspired to produce in turn your art or some kind of meaning that you get out of that in the world. This is a pretty cool way to think about it, because it kind of shows you how our whole reality is this interdependent meaning exchange this way. Because we all consume stuff from each other all the time, right? We consume each other's works, words, emotions. Emotions is a form of meaning that can be ingested and expressed. So this is just one big whirlpool of us saying to each other, like, you seeing this? You seeing this? I'm seeing this. Are you seeing this? It's very trippy.
Because we can't help it, right? Because every single day you're receiving information, you're reacting to it, you have thoughts about it, right? And this is the reason why, well, part of the reason, how what we know is that if you want to punish somebody, you just put them in solitary confinement with no input, right? So because if you think our mind as computers, like it's constantly reading data, it's constantly receiving and interpreting data. So when there's sometimes in limited fashion, that could be a therapeutic thing. Imagine the float tank, right? It can be a helpful thing. But imagine if you're being like that for a long time. Like that's a punishment because you go mad because you don't have any information to interpret. The brain is like, I need data. What's going on? I don't,
Well, unless you know how to meditate,
or that. Yeah.
that's
How do
kind
you
of
process
what
it?
I want to experiment with at some point because, I mean, I don't even know how you do it these days, but imagine the luxury of doing something like that these days of, I don't know, having you'd have to go to some kind of cabin in the woods with enough
Yeah.
supplies to say if you want to do it like a 10 days or a month or something like that. But imagine how much preparation and resources something like that would take. Besides that, you'd have to, I guess, contact some kind of monasteries, and I don't know if anybody offers anything like that off the cuff, but yeah, it's a big level of luxury. Well, which I do want to attempt at some point because I think something interesting happens there. Because this is what I'm fluctuating between, hey, all this meaning, let's see what else is meaningful. Let's see what kind of meaning I can construct. I fluctuate between that and I don't want any more meaning. It's enough meaning for like I'm tired of this shit.
I
And
understand you, man, because
you
that's
know what I
how,
mean?
yeah, I know
Exactly.
what you mean. It's because that's humanity. We're this creature who just vacillating between two extremes. It's like, oh, I can't be too hot, I can't be too cold, I can't be too,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't be too hungry, I can't be
And you
too,
never arrive at this optimal spot that you
right.
want.
But that's the nature of us. That's how it works. I'm sorry, but this is life. You are being alive. A thing alive is change. You have this kind of fluctuations, and you kind of have to deal with it, right? Because I think a lot of people, I think the issue is we're trying to have a set defined, like this is it. I don't want to, I just want this to be it. But it doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work that like that, you know? And I think we need to get used to the idea that, well, just like you can have a quote unquote good morning, bad morning, well, things change. And you just have to be able to be okay with that. Be okay, this is fine. This is the state
Yeah,
of
this is what
things.
it is right now. It's going to be something else later.
Getting back to that Jimmy Carr saying, I really like the way he said it. It's like happiness is just your current circumstance without expectation. I just love that line. It's just it really encapsulates basically how you should want to live your life. It's like don't expect anything. You know, it's
Yeah,
like
because
it
it's a
is what it is.
detachment.
Whatever it is, it will be. You know. So like I said, I've been finding that really helpful for me myself in terms of regulating my emotions, and it's been working wonders because I'm having a bad time technically. My truck is in the repair shop. I'm losing money basically, you know, and I had to rent trucks and it cost me more money to do it, but I accepted it. It's like, yep, that's life. It happens.
That's what's happening right now. Yeah.
You just deal with it. I just deal with it. You know, it's been fine. It's been a week. I'm still waiting. I don't know when the thing's gonna get repaired. It might be another week or maybe 2 weeks. I'm like, that's time out of money for me. But whatever. You know, it's like, you know, I try to meet my obligation of, you know, trying to do what I can. You know, so emotionally, I'm very stable. It feels great. It feels good. I don't have any, you know, and I really like that for myself. You know, I'm like, that's great. I'm able to have not this upheaval because I mean I know some people really enjoy emotions when they have them, especially something joyful, but I'm kind of like I actually don't like emotions. I think it's a problem. Like it's definitely a
Yeah, because they take over, and then it's like they have inertia to them too. So you're gonna be going
yeah,
down
it colors your
up and
vision
down
so
these
much.
rides, and you have no control.
Because when
It's
I
like a
think
roller
back
coaster of
anytime, yeah, anytime I have this kind of emotional upheaval, like to say, whether that's just you know, extreme negativity or some kind of anger. If I think back and you're like, that didn't feel that great at all. Not just because it's like, because when it happens, half of me is just interpreting it. It's like, okay, it's happening. I'm trying to control it, but I can't control it. It's just like, you know, especially when when you're angry at something, like it's just but it's so weird because some people can just be angry and then think back to, oh, I was angry. Okay, you know, so that was an experience. I'm like, it's happening while I interpreting it. Like I'm at the my mind is such these days that I'm meta interpreting whenever it's happening. You know, so I know I'm getting angry at certain things. I'm being pissed off.
yeah,
I'm like,
means that you're
but
aware.
then I feel the compulsion to just carry it out and it's almost like I can't control it. It's like, yeah, it's happening. I know it's happening, but it's happening, right? It's like I don't want it to happen, but it's just like you're compelled. You feel like I want to carry it out. There's that compulsion. So it's weird when you're reading something like that, you know? And I guess, well, anger is the most extreme form of emotion, but you can have other things. And there are times I will be kind of down and I'm trying to get myself back to baseline, and it's a struggle as well. Sometimes it's not that easy. You're like, yeah, I don't feel that great, but I try to interpret it in a different way, but sometimes it just kind of persists, right? So, but all I'm saying is I think that it's very valuable to interpret your own emotions and kind of that's the awareness you're talking about. Being aware of your whole kind of, okay, I'm feeling this way. Why am I feeling this way? Oh, it's because of this. Because when you explain to yourself why certain, like, the rationale for that, the meaningfulness of what that interpretation is, you get clarity, and you automatically kind of just like calm down. You naturally will calm down because you're no longer in that
Yeah.
mode of experiencing that emotion. You're like, oh, okay, I'm having the moment here. Oh, okay, interesting. Okay, I see
Yeah.
why I'm having it.
It does another thing essentially, just because you don't even have to do any analysis or real acknowledgement of like, oh, what is happening. You can just kind of retreat into that awareness itself. And that's the solution. Because when you are awareness, you're just being in presence and you're literally just witnessing, okay, that's what's happening. And that's it. You're withdrawing any kind of judgment, any kind of relationships to it. That's just what's happening. What does it have to do with you? You can just be this peaceful awareness, and that's it.
It's like turning the point of view to like a CCTV camera. This is always floating above
Yeah,
you almost. I was like, oh, I see what's going on right now.
exactly. Yeah. Just like, yeah, this is what it looks like. This is what's happening, but like whatever.
Yeah. I think
Cool.
that can fix a lot of the problem that we have in our daily lives because, I do see that, just generally from the news and what have you, there's a lot of cases of people having dependencies over like medications and stuff. And this is why I feel very hesitant with medication. I think a lot of times like
Dude, yeah,
these things
same thing.
you can fix it yourself. I'm not saying all things you can fix, but especially some of these mental things, like the adjustment that you make with your mind can help a lot. I'm not saying all
Yeah, I
medications
believe the
are
same
out,
thing.
but I will be very hesitant to consider medication first before I kind of delve into try to get to the source of the problem myself in terms of mentally, because anything related to the mind, it's all about how you're thinking. So I'm sure there are people whose minds are wired a certain way, and obviously it's not that easy to just think good thoughts and that's it. No, I know there are cases where you do perhaps need medication to kind of control that, but that is the process. And even then, that person can understand, okay, this is the process, this is happening, and I understand the cause of this, and therefore, so they can function with that, with the medication. But I'm just saying that some people just take medication without considering the ramifications, even with something which
Yeah,
they could
I
actually fix
agree.
it without it.
It's so strange that it's like so widespread, at least in the Western world, you see it. But I have the exactly same perspective and idea as you, because mm, I thought to myself, even like in these days where I notice like, oh, I think I might have something like ADHD symptoms. And the thought crossed my mind, like, oh, I guess maybe there's medication for that. But as somebody who's never taken medication for anything ever, since I don't remember the last time I took any pills. I have some supplements, which are just just some organic stuff like roots and whatnot, but not in terms of meditation. But instantly, if I start thinking about like if you take something like essentially any psychoactive medicines, it's gonna change you, and you don't know the way it's going to change you. It's going to have a side effects. It's going to have an influence on your brain. It might change the way your brain works. To change it from what it is by nature, just from that alone, I have trouble with it. But to the point that you brought it up, I think the crucial part is that whatever is at the root cause of the issue has to be worked out by you mentally. You have to drill down to what's the problem, because all this is why I'm a big believer in psychosomatic reasons for the illnesses and problems in health, because there is some kind of tension or conflict internally. Maybe there's conflict between expectations and reality or something like that, and that's the root cause. It's not that you're just suddenly sick for no reason. No, it starts somewhere. And if you dig deep enough, you will be able to resolve it. And yeah, my intuition tells me that that's what you should be doing, even though it is more difficult, it is less clear of what that looks like. But the only way through such difficulties is essentially within. You have to go within and you're like, okay, what's going on? And dig through every corner until you stumble upon something, maybe with the help of professionals and whatnot, but not medication, man. I don't know. I don't know how people so readily is like, oh, I'm just going to take antidepressants. I feel sad. I'm going to take antidepressants. Surely that will fix everything. What about the side effects, bro? The
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts as one of the primary side effects? Why would you want that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not medical experts, so we don't know the
Yeah,
exact
no
process. I
idea
know
what we're
some
talking
people,
about.
I know certain, what was that? Some people had to take lithium, basically the elements to kind of balance their brain chemistry and whatnot. So I can
Yeah,
see how
that's
for
more severe
some,
example, I guess.
that's probably needed to balance all that in a chemically and whatever. But I think the majority of the work is still mental. You still have
Yeah,
to
the
work
root
on
cause still
yourself,
has
right?
to
To
be
work
somewhere
on
within.
yourself, and it's all interpreted. Because see, currently, I mean, a lot of the floating around in the current zeitgeist is this sort of, a lot of people are sort of, this idea that victim mentality and things like that, right? Some people have these, and it's really the wrong way to think about life. It's like, no, we're not victim. Don't think yourself as a victim, right? Because you can infinitely think yourself as a victim of something, and that's just kind of a position of powerlessness. You want to take control of the problems and whatever, and try to fix it, and not to, even if you have a traumatic childhood or what have you,
Yeah,
it's still up to you to how to
essentially
interpret that.
you have to examine every single thought, like ideally. This is literally where my life led me, because one of my saving mantras became that don't believe everything you think. That
Yeah.
is such a meta wisdom, because
Yeah.
if you remember that and you start getting like, I'm doing this and this, if you start going down that route, you kind of, you remember, oh wait, not a sec, wait a second, yeah, no, that's just some bullshit thought. And eventually you can make it into a habit where you just don't do that anymore, because you realize, yeah, these are just some thoughts, but if they're not productive and they're not helping you and they're not improving your life, why have those thoughts? This is where I think it's crucial, because I know for myself it is possible. Like it's a day and night, because surely, of course, we've all been there. But I remember where the states where I didn't know anything about what I know now, and you would just be getting lost. You would be literally those thoughts. You'd be thinking that, oh yeah, I am sad, and you'd be really believing that thought. But now you're just like, yeah, that's just a thought. And it literally happens to me sometimes where you're like, I'm detecting a thought. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is some bullshit. They just forget about it. Dude, it's such a superpower.
Yeah.
I am so happy these days just because of that alone, because I am actually able to, yeah, you know what? That's blah, 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 blah. Who
Yeah.
cares? Go away. And then
Whatever.
it goes away. Yeah. Like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what this is. I don't know who's saying these
So
things in my
so
mind.
in
I
that
don't have
way,
to listen to this.
it's like you can't trust yourself and whatever you're
See, this is
thinking.
not yourself. This is the trick. People equate themselves with thoughts.
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly.
This is the
Exactly.
whole point
That's the
behind
problem.
meditation and spiritual way of life, is that you realize that that's not your identity, because in that reality, thoughts literally control your experience, control your reactions. But once you are able to distance from them and see them, yeah, that's not me. If they're here, if the thoughts are here and I'm detecting them and I'm seeing them, they're not you.
Right.
That's just
Exactly.
logic. It just
Yeah.
takes kind of repetition and
Because
investigation
I,
to really embody it and
I
understand it.
also I also think that a lot of the issues comes with it is that we're very afraid to deal with this ego, so to speak, because we identify as this kind of like, okay, we all have a name, right? We register ourselves as identifying as this name, this person, this history, but that's the problem. You are identifying with these things that kind of make beliefs, or some are based on fact, like what happened to you or your childhood history or whatever all that is, right? but you're identifying with that. And the problem is, I think it's very scary for people to, this is almost forbidden. People don't like to kind of playing around with their identity too much because it can make you crazy. Because literally, you're like,
Right,
it
because
depends on
it can
how
be a bit
you,
scary.
it can be scary, right? Because it's this kind of, if you get detached so much from that, then there could be a possible kind of ramification that's kind of negative where you're like, I literally are coming apart, basically. It's like having a dissociative kind of
Well,
state of mind, right?
that's some of those mystical and spiritual experiences are essentially about that, because I've read a lot about such experiences from other people, like online, where they seriously, like some people would have it out of nowhere too, like not because they were seeking it, not because they took some stuff or were meditating. They would just have that experience of suddenly like, whoa, blowing up to the size of the universe, and then like experiencing that clearly, like having a proper memory of that experience being left with them afterwards. We're like, okay, if
That
that's
just happened.
possible, if that just happened, if I, like, what am I then? You know, that's a
Right.
mind blower that will send you on a lifelong search after that. Because like, what you have to derive meaning from that now? You have to understand what that means to
Yeah.
your identity, to who you are, to what the world is, to what reality is. It completely throws everything that you've known out of the window.
Yeah. And that can be scary because other people don't
Yeah, you don't know what it
want to,
is.
they exactly, it's the unknown and therefore they don't want to deal with it. But the question, sometimes you do have to venture, you do have to ask yourself that question sometimes, right? And to kind of really face, kind of put yourself in the right sort of close examination, I guess, vis-a-vis the universe. It's like, okay, what's my place? What's my kind of, you are not the name that you're given. You are not this, whatever you identity, like, because the thing is, people want to have a stable identity because it's just easier for the brain to function that way, to have this set structure, be okay, I'm this, and I can do all this,
Yeah,
right?
you kind of know what to expect, right, at all
Yeah,
times,
because
because
the worst thing for people is like our most primal fear is the unknown, right? This is why we have a fear of the dark because you can't see, you don't know what's out there, right? So that's kind of the primal thing. Because for survival, you need certainties. You don't want uncertainties because that's just how the brain will wired for survival. And so in that sense, yeah, we want to have this because this is why people kind of tell themselves lies sometimes. Like they identify a certain kind of whatever rationale there it is. And it's kind of the mind's defense mechanism, right? Sometimes, especially when a person is dealing with a lot of trauma, if they experience a really huge traumatic event, this is why you have PTSD. That what happens is the brain cannot deal with it. They had to form some kind of escape. This is why you can have a split personality disorder. Again, I'm not a medical person, so I don't know that, but this is what I hear, right, from reading online. Then sometimes you can have a split personality or what have you. These things can happen is because the brain is trying to protect itself. It doesn't have any other avenues, and therefore it use this method to split it up so that you can just have this kind of stable thing in which paradoxically is actually unstable. But so weird. The mind can do weird things. So I think that it is kind of hard to say because I remember, and this is the interesting part. I know you related to me before. Just most recently, you had this sleeping problem, which
mm,
derived from that meditative process in which you went through, and and I just thought about how much we don't really know about the mind and how it works, right? And I guess particularly to this incident that you were experiencing, it kind of fascinates me. I know that sounds kind of morbid, but it's fascinating me the fact that it happens to you, but not other people who have done more or less the same practice, the same thing, right? They all been instructed by the same teacher. This is how you're supposed to do this sets of meditative activities and what have you, but it
yeah,
affects
no,
you.
because there's still enough kind of variations in how you do it. So as I was explaining to you, I was doing it like at certain times of the day where it was messing up with my sleep cycle. So because I just didn't know specifically, I thought you could meditate whenever. But apparently, yeah, if you go into deep meditation, it it kind of cuts into your sleep time. So you can get into deep meditation, which is actually, that was the goal with that practice. The goal was that you would meditate before sleep and then enter the meditative state and not leave it throughout the sleep time. So what my teacher would do, he would meditate, lie back on the bed, continue meditating throughout the whole night consciously. So it's a stage in a meditation that you achieve. Your consciousness no longer interrupts ever. So you go back to bed, your
Uh,
body rests, but you meditate.
so
Your consciousness does not
you're
interrupt. Yeah,
aware that you're
yeah.
doing.
When I realized that that's what, because I thought that maybe that's what it was. It was moving towards that non-interruption of consciousness phase for me. And I think that contributed to the problem because I got scared because I thought, well, how? How am I going to go without sleep? Sleep is like so important, so good, so etc. So I think it was a combination of factors. It was the time I was
Uh,
doing it, it was my expectations and excitement about it, and then finally it was the fear because when it happened and the 2 nights that I would lie on the bed and I would want to sleep because that's what you're used to, but then you're so wide awake that you only have like I would literally just try and lie and meditate, but I would get so distraught by the fact that I'm not able to sleep that it would just literally cause suffering. But I think if, I mean, this is just speculation at this point, if I say continued with it, maybe I would have found a way to just have a restful body sleep, so to say, while having, maybe I was on the verge of entering that non interruption of consciousness phase. I just chickened out. But
but
yeah,
that's the
stuff
scary
like that
part.
can
Like you
happen.
don't know, right?
And
You
this is
wouldn't
the
know
scary
if
part because,
that's
like, maybe it is possible. Maybe then I would be able to do it. But I instantly started thinking, okay, I know if people go like 10, 11 days without sleep, they die. And I realized if this is what I'm messing with, and I don't know know if I'm controlling it or not controlling it, what if I'm not, what am I going to mess it up so bad that I'm never able to sleep and then I just die in a week? I instantly thought about that and I realized, oh, I don't know what I'm messing with here. I don't know, dude.
yeah. Because I
So,
this remind me of the thing was I guess I read online. There was this teenage girl who suddenly had this problem, like her leg start twitching, her leg would just start kicking. Basically, can't control it. It just constantly do it. And the moment you try to stop that leg from doing it, she feel like extreme nerve pain.
wow.
So it remind me of that, where sometimes we don't know what the body is doing, what the mind and body connection is doing, and somehow for her that was happening. Like she doesn't want this to happen. She tell the mind, "Don't do this," but why are you doing it? Nobody knows. Wow, right? So slowly, I think they see us through the specialist, and they were trying to forcibly control it, and she just would just be in pain the entire time, like extreme pain. Why is that happening? Don't know. But I guess the therapy was somehow it was a partial, I guess some partially medication and partially just forcing that leg from stop doing it. And it slowly forced the mind to register, okay, this is fine. I don't need to do this or something like that. I don't know exactly how it kind of stopped, but basically they were able to stop it from doing it by just essentially telling it to stop doing it. In the sense that she got bound, right? Her whole body got bound. Yeah, it was painful, but she had to slowly kind of get used to it. And then the mind just realized maybe like, oh, okay, fine. It's fine. Nothing is wrong. So
Wow.
she was able to recover and then eventually walk again. But this to me, that just sounds so weird. Okay, well, the mind can just be in
You
control of
don't know
something in
what's
which
going on in
you
your
don't
own
have
mind.
conscious control. So you're right. What if in that process you lost control and unable to gain it again, and your mind is like, "Yep, I'm
Yep.
just gonna be awake," and then you just perish because you can't sleep. So
Yeah.
that's why the
It's
world it's
everything is
complex
so
and
dangerous, man. Yeah.
it's very
The
mysterious
funny
how things
thing
happen.
is that like after that, like after a while, like several months passed after I finally figured out what the problem was and the fact that you can kind of take yourself by the scruff and kind of take yourself out of the situation by modulating your behavior and your beliefs. I ended that problem, but I naturally still gravitated back towards meditation, but I made kind of an adjustment and the condition that I'll only do it when I want to do it. And that was pretty good. Because before, I would literally approach it with this attitude of a samurai. It's like,
Must
my
force
honor
myself.
demands the
Yeah.
meditation, morning and evening. Whereas I made it a much more fluid part of my own kind of needs and identity. And I do it when I want to do it. I do it when I have energy and focus and desire, and all those things align. And I think it works. Again, this is where it's kind of subjective. It works
It is.
differently for
Yeah.
different folks, because you'll encounter still so many teachers like, no, you need to do it this and this. It all goes back to you are your own authority at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There's no one else. There's no teaching. There's no teacher. You are your own guru, and you know best for yourself. You just have to find a way and kind of tune in and understand, kind of listen to yourself, and really
Yeah.
try to establish that kind
Yes.
of relationship and connection where, like,
Yeah.
this is what I need right now. And there's nobody else in the world that can tell otherwise. You decide that.
Yeah, because you gotta trust your instinct. I think the instinct is very much like, because your body and mind knows a lot more than you consciously do,
Yes.
you know? So that's
Because the
why
whole thing is the
sometimes,
intellect.
because if I think back, a lot of the times my instincts were right when my
Yes.
rational mind rejected it because of like I came up with some kind of rationale. It's like, oh no, it must be because of this and this and that. I'm start interpreting the information consciously, but that's just like you're hallucinating, man. Your instinct is telling you not to do something. It means it knows the truth, basically, you know? But when you reject it because you think, oh, maybe, on the surface, this doesn't look like that or whatever. And then you end up, you are wrong. Instinct were right. Because I think that you probably better to trust your instinct than rejecting it. I think for the most part, I think it's mostly true that your instinct most likely are correct. So that's something in which it's like the kind of like, again, going back to that computer analogy, imagine like all the under the hood, all the systems are running. The processes are more complex than you can actively think about. So it
Mhm.
knows, it receives more data. It receives more things than you know. Because this, for example, how they say, what your eyes, what you're seeing, the image that you see with your eye at any given moment, that's just like interpolation. The brain already had that data received. It's so complex and so amazing the fact that the brain can receive all that kind of raw data, but it needs interpretation. So the interpolation is the brain kind of interpret the image that you see. The eye is just the optic to get the data, and then it
This is
interprets it.
why I say that just by that explanation alone, we live in a simulation,
Yeah,
because
you're
what you're thinking you're
creating it.
seeing, yeah, it's essentially a, a bunch of signals that your brain then simulates into vision. And we even know, like, that our vision fills in some of the stuff that you can't physically see. Your
Yeah, yeah,
brain fills it in. How crazy is that? It's
yeah. Like
crazy.
all the illusion. Yeah, like if you could break your brain, but like it's yeah. That thing cause your brain to be like, oh, I can't interpret this in the right way. So it interprets in another a different way, or seeing two images in that kind of optical illusion or what have you. And I remember I mentioned this before
Yeah,
multiple
just
times
that
to you, but
alone
like
should tell you.
this one thing I learned, right? There was a tech talk about this lady who's a neuroscientist, and she had a stroke. You remember this one? I talked about this earlier before on multiple times, that she had a stroke. So she realized, oh, she's having a stroke at home, and then she tried to call 911. So when she got to the phone, she's seeing all this number on the dial, and she
The
couldn't
meaning,
interpret it. Like, so basically,
yeah.
what happened was half of her brain shut down. So the part that kind of connects everything kind of lost control. So all she sees are like raw data. It's as if the brain before the brain interpretation, you see the raw data. So she's seeing that. So she cannot recognize what the numbers mean
Yeah.
in and out. Like she's having a stroke. So sometimes she reckons, oh, that's 9, oh, that's 1 1. But sometimes she will forget. What is that symbol? Like, what is that? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know what I'm
yeah.
seeing. Like literally, it's
It
all
has no
data,
meaning. It's just
no
some
meaning.
lines and
The meanings
squiggles.
are dead. They're just like I can't. what am I supposed to do? Or what am I seeing? Like she couldn't, right? But
It's got
then
to be the scariest feeling.
she was saying, yeah, I half the time she doesn't know what's going on. But then it does come back, and then she was able to dial 911, and then just like I need help, and and was able to get help. Eventually, she recovered, but she was scientist. She was like fascinated. It's like, well, this is so fascinating. The
Right.
first-hand experience of having that. But basically, what it says is just, yeah, your brain interprets all that information, and without that kind of part of the brain's interpretation, you literally will not understand anything at all. There's no meaning. It's all raw data. You don't understand what you're seeing. A chair is not a chair. It's just a thing, a shape like that. And
Yeah.
she also
So,
kind of explained is sometimes her visual field also changes too. I think she was seeing something is as if she's seeing the Matrix. It's like this whole bunch of almost like noise, it's almost like signal noise that is covering everything. You see those things as if this Matrix in shapes of things, almost like that. And then she was like, yeah, what is this? I can't figure it out, right? And then when she regained that function of the brain, then you can start interpreting normally. It's like that's kind of how I guess is how it is. It's like we are constantly interpreting all these information that we receive, and we see them and we call them reality, which I guess yes they are, but they're just a form. It's like again, it's like the whole saying, a rose tinted glass, right? You have a piece of eyeglass that tinted the color, so that's not the real color, or at least it's just your interpretation of that color. So all that to say, you kind of have to both trust yourself and not trust yourself, Like it's like
yes, that's a good way. See, again, this is where the wisdom and madness are side by side, because if you say something like this, which is distilled wisdom, you have to trust yourself, but not trust yourself.
so
Sounds
people are
like
like, yeah, what
nonsense.
the hell are you talking about? What do you mean? Trust yourself, not
But
trust
if
yourself?
you
Are you
watch this
crazy?
whole segment that we just went through, it is a succinct way to say something like that. You have to trust yourself, but not trust yourself, said Nicolas Cage's character.
And make
Sounds like a
hat out
piece
of
of mad
newspaper.
wisdom. Yeah. Which brings us back to where it all started. The Jiu-Jitsu. We never finished the Tao of
There's more?
Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay,
There's more.
tell me
There's
more.
endless. No, it's not endless. We were near the end of the summary, but so far we saw that life itself is the tournament and the adversary is the teacher. I think it's a apt way to say it. Then madness and wisdom are siblings. That's where we stopped. Another one was repetition is the rhythm of the cosmos, because in that movie, every 6 years, every lifetime, the same lesson returns until it's truly learned. And that part is true too. I think it's
Cycles.
another, yeah. But like about the lesson kind of returning, that's definitely a spiritual kind of wisdom that I've learned for myself. And it's true. It's many people, once they go through the process, they can reflect on it, that some situation will just keep presenting itself until you find a way to essentially not have it or not get stuck in it. Because the reason it gets presented to you is because you are, for the lack of better words, you are mishandling it. You are mishandling it, or you are not
Right,
behaving yourself
right,
in
right.
the best way. Like you could be handling it in a better way. Or is there something that you're not seeing and you're supposed to see?
It's like learning, right? Initially, if you
Yes.
learn something, you hit the wall. It's like you don't understand, don't compute. And then you keep trying and until you finally it clicks, like I get it. That connection being made, like, oh, I get it now. It's your life is like that, right? It's like
Yes.
you keep meeting obstacles. Why does it not work? Well, because you're not doing. I mean, you're doing it wrong. You're performing something that's suboptimal or whatever it is that you're not doing it right. That's why you're having these obstacles. So when lives are going smoothly, then you can interpret that as things are going right. I'm doing all the things that are right for my life, and that's why everything is working out. Because if you're constantly hitting obstacles, like okay, something is wrong, something that I'm doing is wrong. You can't blame the world, okay? Because think about it. I mean, things happen in the world, right? Now, so how you interpret that is really the most important part. It's not because the world is out there to get you. It's more like what the world are, how the world is. But you are doing something in which you're just kind of not getting it. it's basically hitting your head on the wall, like trying to go through. Why would you keep doing this by not
Yeah, and then
understanding
you're
you can
just
go around
not
it?
noticing it.
Right. So the fact are the facts, but how you're interpreting such fact, that's different. So the wisdom comes into, okay, this is why experience are very important because you get to learn. Okay, I see. I tried this, it didn't work out, and therefore I'm trying to avoid that. Right. And this is how you get experience. You understand, oh, I see. You see a mile away when you have experience, like, yeah, this is what's going to happen because you've been through that before, or a variation of that. And a young person or a kid who hasn't had that life experience will stumble without guidance, right? So that's kind of how, because that's the thing. Like we're saying about cycles, when a child is born, it's basically tabula rasa, is blank slate. It's a blank slate. You got to learn everything there is to learn about being a human being, you know? But that's also the magic because every kid, every individual interpret the world differently. You're not your parents. Your parents are different than you, and you are different than them, and you're different than your friend and everybody that you know. So this is why we have, like, in the real world, we have a lot of people who invent stuff or come up with really great stuff. That's because they interpret the world very differently than all the other people that, so it just by default, like when the moment you're born, you're different. You're different than everybody else in this world. You're unique. You have something to kind of, so I think that now, of course, reality don't conform the way that we wish it to, but that you got to be okay with that. You have to be like, you know what? I'm going to try this thing out or whatever it is and just poke around and see, okay, I might become something that I am wholly unaware of that I will become, So basically I'm saying is don't have these preconceived notion about who you are. You don't know that. You don't get to control anything. The stuff that we can have control over is very limited in this life. This is why self mastery is very important because that's the only thing you have control over. Because you can't control the moment of your birth, when you're going to get born, when you're going to die. You don't have control over that. So all you have is the time. Just again, I love that quote from the Lord of the Ring, right? All you have to, all you, how does that go? All you have is the time that is given to you.
Yeah.
So it's about, again, I'm probably misquoting that, but like, this is one of my favorite quotes from that movie. But basically, all you have is what you do with the time that is given to you. Yeah, I think that's how. So you gotta figure it out. You gotta master over yourself, right? And to kind of be the truest form of yourself. But the truest form is not known to you until you actually not even becoming it. Is not even become it, but becoming it is gerund, right? Becoming. You're constantly becoming it. So there's not like a state where like, okay, this is it. Once I achieve my final form, or there's no final form.
Right. There's no
It's
arrival at that
it's
final form.
constantly evolving. Imagine you think back of all the memories that you have. You when you recall, that's a period of your life. You're formulating this kind of remembrance. But this is why memory can be so blurry sometimes because it's just there's flux, it's in flux, right? It's like every single day we're different. Every single day we encounter different things. We're doing different things. We're doing, so that's just why it's very hard to kind of have a grasp on yourself because you're changing all the time. This is why sometimes I look at myself in the mirror. It's like, oh wow, I'm like the sense of time is very different because in my head I'm like lagging behind than how I'm changing. Sometimes if you reflect back, it's like, oh, wow, like I'm a grown ass man now. But sometimes
Yeah.
you're still remain back in your childhood. That feels like it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not the distance in your mind is not really. Yeah, I have the same kind of problem conceptualizing time is what it means for your identity. I guess it depends on what kind of life you led, right? I'm sure if, yeah, it's true. It depends on what you do with your life. Because you could be, I don't know, locked in the same room and just be writing your whole life like certain philosophers did. And I'm sure that influences like the way you see yourself because if nothing changes much around you and you're not involved in many new situations, you kind of do remain the same more or less, right? But What were we talking about? Oh yeah, we were talking about the lessons, like, because I was thinking about a very stark example of a situation that you will encounter until you learn a
Yeah.
lesson from it is how people treat you. So if you encounter situations where people either neglect you or take advantage of you, or all those things that you would interpret in a negative way, it's essentially because you're not setting your boundaries correctly.
Hmm.
Because if somebody comes over and they're just, I don't know, very pushy, very aggressive, if you don't know how to set your boundaries properly, every time you encounter such people, they will roll over you. They will essentially get their way, at your expense. And unless you recognize, like, hey, wait a second, right, that's not right. You should be doing something differently here. Until you learn that lesson, you will be encountering that same situation again and again, because there are all kinds of people out there, and pushy ones are among them. So it's an example like that, because I remember, like, I had to have that realization. It's like, yeah, this is because I wouldn't think about it until I encountered the situation. And after it recurred several times, I'm like, yeah, I have to,
Hmm.
like, something consciously adjust how I deal with people and how I explicitly set my boundaries. Because I guess as a childish kind of expectation, I was expecting them to just respect my boundaries without them knowing them. But that's not how it
Right.
works.
Right. Right.
And you learn that, and then you have to, oh, I have to, like, vocalize them and be respectful about it, by
Right.
be firm. You have to find a way to do it. And until you do, you will be faced with that situation again and again.
Yeah.
That was the example I was thinking.
Because it is, I mean, living is an art. How to do it well, like I would say not too many people are successful at it, you know? I mean, again, it's up to interpretation, but to really say to have a good sense of how to live, there's a lot to consider, you know? But like I said before, I think self-mastery is definitely very important, in terms of, because that again is back to the idea that you're actively creating yourself, so it's not like what is the society can offer me, or what's going on out there. And again, running my own little business kind of taught me that. It's like, well, yeah, the world can be, it's a very interesting place. It has all these things going on. You can just poke around and find out. So instead of this kind of mentality like, oh, what can I yeah begging other people for, in terms of like, I know sometimes it's hard. I'm not saying like, a job can be valuable, and sometimes you got to do what you got to do. You got to have a job. It's fine. But I just think that over time as an individual, I think you do want to do your own thing, you know? It's okay to have a job temporarily or to get to where you want to be, but there has to be a goal. Like, okay, I want to achieve this, but right now I'm going to do all this stuff to get to there. And I think running business for myself, even as, let's be real, right? A lot of the times people, we can be selfish, and only caring about our particular sets of things. That's just kind of how the mind, because you only know yourself, right? It's very hard to know other people. And therefore, if you say, this is why, like, in cases of like big companies, they don't care about you. They see you as a number, because that becomes a machine in itself, right? And obviously, there's gonna be people who are making a lot of money for doing what? Nothing at all, or very little. And while all the labor are being extracted, right? That's again, sadly, that's kind of how the world is going on. But I think as an individual, for you to kind of thrive, you do just, I mean, you got to do what you have to do to navigate all that structure. But I think it's very valuable to kind of create something of your own. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be something very small, but like I think in terms of for your soul, for your inner being, I think it is that fire that really keep you going, despite whatever else happens in the real world. I mean, we all had to struggle. We all had to find our way, our role in society, because we had to participate in society because we're people. Oh, you can't survive by yourself. I just think that it's just kind of you have to kind of set in your mind kind of how do you go about creating yourself. self that you're becoming, you know? And that can give you the fire. That's the fire. It's the inner fire that burns. You know, a lot of people lost hope because they only see outside into the world and say, oh, how sad the world is or how terrible things are happening. Yes, they are. And they just kind of subconsciously accepts everything and just like, oh, whatever the world can give me, that's it. And you're not striving to like creating something of your own because you're, I don't know, you have self-doubts or, you know, or what have you. But as we have derived from the Tao of Jiu-Jitsu, these are things that happens. The cycle happens. These are tests. They are challenges that are going to be thrown your
Yeah,
way.
they're
And you have
lessons.
to meet the challenge. And to meet the challenge, you have to fight. You have to go out there and actively face it head on. And you can't just be like, oh, whatever. You know, that's the thing. If you give up, then you give up. You know, things, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know? You are what you are. You are what you do. You are what you think. You know, so if you project yourself in a certain way, well, that's what's gonna happen. It's just like how I just remind me of I was gonna just thought about David Goggin, how he realized that yeah, my life is not going. This is not the way I want it to go, and I'm gonna challenge myself. And that's what he did, right? Again, to me, I'm not saying that that's fit for everybody because I think that for him, he needed it. And for
Yeah,
some
he
people,
figured that
they
out
need
for
that.
himself.
They need that level of the intensity of just becoming like what they want is becoming a better version of themselves, right? Essentially reborn, being reborn, reforged, you know. For some, that will be what's required. That kind of regimented the level of you know. But like you said before, you found out that the best for you in terms of meditation is just whenever I wanted it. Sometimes for some people, that's they do be like that. You kind of have to follow your own hearts because I'm not saying everybody can be like David Goggins. You know, not only is it some people just can't do it, it's also some people are not fit for that. Like their life will not, they will be having a terrible time trying to be like him because for whatever reason, they're not as motivated to get to that level, or that's not how they want their life to be. So there's no single answer. Any of these gurus, any of these great people, they can be an inspiration, but you have to kind of actively take in the lesson and think that, oh, does that make sense for me? Does that make sense for me to do that? You know, you have to find your own version of it. And there's a powerful thing to find your own, is to find your voice, to find your, you know, and this is a lifelong goal. It's a lifelong search. There's no end to it. You can't just be like, oh, once I have this, I'm set. No, there's nothing like that in this world. You know, there's nothing set. There's nothing. So I think as long as the quicker we can change our mind about that and just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna see what happens. I have what I want to achieve. I'm gonna try to do it, and we'll see what happens. And I think that's the most powerful thing. It's like I remember what Jordan Peterson was saying, you know, with the myth, all of the myth about, you know, in the Western myth is all about you go out there to confront the dragon, right? To confront the unknown. It is that. It is that kind of go out there and find out what you are about. You know, you don't know who you are until you meet the world, until you know, you meet the challenges and you know, and be tested, right? There will be that alien who comes every, you know, 6 years to kick your ass, you know, like you gotta, you know, you gotta meet it.
Yeah, exactly. And wanted to wrap up with the last bit of the wisdom from that Tao analysis.
Yes.
It's the main one, the classic one. Form is illusion and flow is truth. The fight choreography in that movie, like life's movements, only matters when it flows from emptiness. But the way we're trying to condense the whole Tao of Jiu-Jitsu is with this line. There is no victory, only the dance between form and formlessness.
Whoa.
How do you like that?
Wow.
It goes deep.
God damn. I mean,
There is no victory, only the continuous dance between form and formlessness.
holy shit.
Yeah, that's
I mean that
Jiu-Jitsu
I
for
mean
you.
that's what we were talking about, right? That's what
Yeah,
we were talking about this whole time. Like,
it's
yeah,
always
there
just
is no
that.
victory. It's a constant, like we're saying, right? We're constantly evolving, we're constantly becoming, and it's just that's how the cycle works. Like there's no victory. Victory as in what? What's the condition? You know, like it never the moment you achieve something, something else is still
Yeah, it's
further off.
already
It's
moving
already,
towards the next thing.
so there's no goal of being like, okay, I'm gonna be this and that's it. No, life still goes on, right? It still continues. So yeah, I mean, there's no better way to put it. I mean, yeah, like every day, yeah, form and the formless, right? The form that you can perceive and there are form that you can't. And this is the interplay between that every single day. It's happening all around us. Whether you perceive it or not, this has been going on. I don't know, that is Tao. That is pretty much Tao. Taoism, it's essentially that. It's basically that summarizes it pretty
Yeah,
succinctly,
it's
you know?
the top perspective. Yeah, so it's trying to see the whole in all its glory, but you can only kind of you can witness it, but you can never really put it into words. Or you can put it into a movie like Jiu-Jitsu. So that's that form that's trying to express the formless, you know?
Sometimes it do be like that.
It do be like that, man. Yeah. I mean, we'll have to plunder the depths of that movie for some time. Like, I'll see what else we can think about for it. But for today, I think that would be a good wrapping up point.
That's a
It's
good
a
wrap.
nice conclusion for
That's a
that whole
wrap.
story arc.
Oh,
We
wow.
went through so many things, and then a 90-degree turn to jiu-jitsu, which unfolded as this cascade of insights and philosophy lessons that we then talked about for like 2 or something hours. So
Oh my God. Jesus
that's
Christ.
just a little movie like jiu-jitsu. That's what it can do for you, for crazy minds like ours.
So remember, folks, things are deep, man. There's so many depth that you can, plunge into, and that's a mind bender.
That's right. We go deep and fried on this one. Stay crispy.